G'day, and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm joined today by Algared. How you doing, man?
I'm feeling older. Tired.
Someone asked me how you were the other day, and I said, old.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like that.
Yeah.
Where, some of my kids think I'm the Sizzler.
Yeah.
Always alive with the dinosaurs or stuff like that. But, you know, hey, that's life.
And we got lucky today, too. ISC's out before we are, which was, it's a bit of a first. Yeah. So I've got my tea, got the chat window up, just waiting for you guys to get your stuff together. I'm sure someone will pop in a minute and see how we're doing. But yeah, so we'll be looking at IC, taking your questions. You should be able to preference your question with question, and we'll go from there.
Should pop up in our question stream.
So you were telling me just before we got started, Algared, do you want to tell us about the Evocati patch? Apparently it's a big one, you were saying.
Yeah, well, I started downloading it about probably 6 o'clock, and normally it loads pretty quickly for me. And it's about an hour and a half
ago for people watching. Yep.
And I'm 50%. So I don't know whether it's just lag issues or anything else, but usually the patch doesn't take that long.
Hey, Feathers.
But it is, and yes, I'm using an SSD, not a HDD or whatever they call, the old drives. But yes, I am on an SSD.
Yeah. So we'll probably give it a bit to let people join, and then we'll get started on ISC. But yeah, might give them, I don't know, half an hour or so. But yeah, if you've got a question, let us know. I do think a lot of people got really excited this week about Quanta as well, the first implementation of Quanta. I think that's kind of been a long time coming, so people are really excited for it. But it's only in a very limited fashion. But I do think it sets, like, I'm surprised I didn't think of it earlier, actually, now. Like, with the cargo refactor coming, it has obviously got to be on the cards, so... Yeah,
I think it was definitely on the cards for cargo. They're certainly looking at it for fuel. I think they certainly looked at... I think it was fuel... there was three. There was three elements they're bringing in. Fuel was one. I thought salvage or repair was one, but that doesn't ring true at the moment. I just can't remember. I have to go back and watch the previous the previous video. But yeah, the cargo, the Quanta coming in those three areas, I think really flags things. And yeah, it would have been nice to see them do more, but it follows the normal thing they've done, where they go bring something in one area and really hammer and hone it, and then spread it out. It's just, same with rivers.
Well, Quanta's interesting because it's exclusive to the PU. It's not even required for. So this is one of those first things we're getting that is just really for the PU. So it's good to see that. I was just reading on my left is the chat window, and Feather McGraw is saying the Salvage tool is looking really great. Is there a new image that they've put in this week that I've missed? You got a link for us, Feathers? Because that sounds new to me. That's new and different to me. I know they had the old one a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, that sounds different to me. But yeah, if you've got a link, chuck it to us. Oh, it's in ISC. Well, we haven't seen it yet. Don't spoil it. Well, he spoiled it. It's too late now. Hey, Voodoo, how you doing? Yeah, he's ruined it. We won't be able to watch it now. Ruined it.
Yeah. Spoilers. Put a spoiler tag up. Yeah. Warning.
And I think both of us have not had enough sleep today. I think we were saying earlier we've only both had about 4 hours because it just gets that way. I totally forgot it was on. That was the other thing. I woke up and went, 7:05. Oh shit! Just out of bed, and he's Algared.
Onto the normal.
Algared was waiting for me, and I'm like, oh shit.
Waiting. Con the Fruitia. For those who remember Australian comedy from the 80s. That's what I was just channeling. Yeah.
So I think Agent's asking a question, but he didn't preference it with the word question, but that's okay. I'm also realizing that the Nightbot that was here the last couple of weeks is not here, so I'm going to have a quick look and see if I can get that working, because it definitely makes my life easier. But yeah, can you answer that question that he asked in chat, Algared, please?
As soon as I can get it back up, I just accidentally closed the window, and now I can't remember the last question. And I've got the way I've got the lighting, those new lights, they're like headlamps. I can't see anything.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. So Agent 1213 asks, will maximum crew be a thing as far as life support is concerned?
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's one of the I've asked that question time and time again regarding the Phoenix. The Phoenix was supposed to have an additional power plant to power the additional systems it's got. Those systems being the third power plant, or the third turret, the enhanced weapons, and all the rest of it. But when you look at the Phoenix, you look at the luxury passenger area, which is 3 people. You look at the crew, that's 4 people. You're effectively doubling the crew size, and yet you're not doubling the life support. And so I've always argued that the Phoenix has this huge problem just in life support, and not having the additional power to support that larger life support. So I hope we do see that, but yeah. And it's certainly one of the things I think CIG have talked about, certainly when oxygen supplies on ships become limited.
Well, I know, like the ship I'm thinking of was one that we talked about quite a bit, was with the what do you call it? The Terrapin. You know how we were first talking about how it looks like it's 2 crew, but it's really designed for 1, blah blah blah. So and there's several ships we've had like that where we've just like it looks like it could. The other one, okay, I'll give you another example, the Cutlass. It's only got 2 beds, but it's clearly got seats for 3, and then it doesn't even, because you've got the turret and then you've got the co-pilot and the pilot. Like, are you meant to drop the co-pilot back to the turret? Like,
yeah, and then you've got the problem with the Cutlass steel.
Yeah,
with like 1 million beds or 1 million seats.
Yep.
So does that really say, well, this is really just for very short raids or positions? Because if you've got, you can't do long range, super long if you're going to run out of oxygen. Or are your fighters all sitting there fully kitted up with their helmets on, using up their helmets' oxygen supplies? So there's a whole series of gameplay loops that come in there. Like, is it the fact that it's not that the oxygen's not very, can't support it, but the scrubbers, the actual machinery just can't keep up with the amount of carbon dioxide and other impurities. And so would that mean that if you're overcrewed at times, you'd have crew put on their helmets just to give the scrubbers a chance to re-clean the oxygen supplies or do whatever? And then you do have that problem of even the supply of oxygen in the ship. So I really do hope that is something that CIG, and I expect it's something CIG are looking at as well. So
I have to agree with the person in chat. Shadow Nova, I believe it is, with the O's taken out. It says steel as in STEAL. That's literally how we name it every time we've done an episode about it, because it's not a bargain at all. It is the complete opposite of a bargain.
I do admit I don't always call it the steel. I sometimes call it the second jab.
Yeah.
Well, for me it was like the second jab of, against Pokemon syndrome.
What
it was kind of half there. I bought a CCU to the Odyssey, didn't even bother about the steel.
I just can't see in what world you wouldn't want 2 Cutlass Blacks over that. I just can't see it. I can't. And at the price that it's at, you can get a Hoplite. Better components, second redundancy on everything. And you can get, you can upgrade it for a little bit to the Harbinger or the Sentinel, and then $100 more, you've got a Redeemer.
Yeah.
Like I just can't justify it.
I struggle to see the value of the steel over the Valkyrie or the Hoplite. I just don't see it. To me, it really is just a shiny money grab. And I know that sounds really bad. And I know it sounds like I'm just crapping on Drake, but no, I'm not. It to me, Drake are already overgunned, so you're adding more guns. Yeah, they're turret guns in the side, but you've got rid of a cargo to put all your troops in. So you're actually denuding the Cutlass of its versatility to make this ship that's already overgunned when you've already got we've already got 3 troop carriers. We've got, the overpriced Prowler, which is great for stealth type stuff and has lots of seats. We've got the Valkyrie with its 6 seats. We've got the Um,
Mm.
I've just gone blank. Valkyrie,
Yep.
Hoplite, and the other one.
Mm.
And then we also know that we've got the Retaliator having those passenger seats. We've got the So there's numerous ships that have those other seats that can do it and do the troop movements. But
all right, the bot is in chat, and apparently, if you so any question you ask with the word question in it will suck out the question and put it into a chat that me and Algared can see it. So if you want to ask a question, just make sure it's got the word question in it, or preface your question with questions in square brackets or something to that effect, and it'll come through to me and Algared. So that's working now, but for some reason I can't get the night bot, which prompts you guys to do that, to work. It's in the chat, but it just doesn't want to do it. So, and it was working last week and the week before, and now for some reason it's just decided to go nope. So I'll have to look at it afterwards. But yeah, so we'll take your questions for a bit, wait to get a few people here, and then we'll go watch ISC together and get some back and forth. So yeah, so there's a lot more people popping up now. So Steps TV asked a question, but he didn't put in questions, but I spotted it. Someone asked this anyway. He goes, do we know if Invictus is coming with 7.1 or 18? Now I know the answer, but Algared, do you know the answer?
What was the question, sorry?
Steps TV asks, do we know if Invictus is coming with 17.1 or 18? And he means patch number, obviously.
It'll come when it comes. It'll come. Invictus will come at the normal time, and I expect it'll be in 17.
It's 17.1. Yep. It's 17.1.
So it'll be. It's certainly too early, given that we're only in Evocati for 17.
Yep.
And it's only what Evocati. Invictus is only about 3 months away at most. So there's no way we're going to see 318 for Invictus. No way.
Okay, so something's happened to the chat bot. I don't know what goes on with this thing. Like, it works and then it doesn't work, and then it's inconsistent as hell. But we'll try it one more time. Starting your vote, beginning. All right, someone asked a question. We'll see if it works now. But we'll go through these questions that people have asked, and then I'll come back and see if it's working. There we go. Yep, it's now working. Sweet. Obviously I started it too early. So Voodoo asks, alone the same. I assume he means along the same lines. It would be great to set up a self-sustaining ecosystem using the Endeavor biodomes, maybe for Expedition gameplay. I don't see how that's a question. It sounds like a statement.
It is a statement, and when you look at what CRG is doing, I think that's what they are looking at. They are looking at being able to do that type of thing where you're able to set up self-sustaining environments. So yeah. I see. This is the thing. Like, I understand farming and I understand drug labs, but when you say something like a self-sustaining environment, so you're talking about food, that would work. So if you could actually, well, that is essentially farming, is it not? So yeah. But if you're doing rare and exotic plants, could you also do some kind of museum thing? I don't know. Like, is there? Well, let me put this here. Do you think there's a market for transporting plants from one side of the universe, like a rare plant that's like maybe medical based, from one side of the universe to the other, and you create an environment in that biodome so it can survive, and you get it to a medical lab all the way on the other side? So I see that as a thing, but that would be a huge effort because you've got to move the whole Endeavor, obviously. And maybe that's what one of the key things for the Endeavor, to do those types of things. But it reminds me, like, that question certainly hails back to the science experiments or the science tasks you get your kids to do, where they have to build literally a self-sustaining ecosystem inside a terrarium. So, okay, build your terrarium with your life forms in it and your plants and worms or whatever else, and let's see the cycle continue, and you leave it there, for 12, 13, 14 weeks, and see whose life forms are still alive or what's happened to them.
I've gone to a very sadistic place. I'm now thinking, as a criminal, can you make people compost? I wonder, just because you said worms. But anyway.
What is it? Soylent Green?
Oh yes, that's it, Soylent Green. Anyway.
That's how we solve food problems in the 25th century.
Manly Stanley asks, sucked out, so I assume he wants to go out on airlock. That floated. All right, noted. Riddick.
That was certainly something that they hinted at even way back when they did the Connie versus the Hornets playtest, where they had the Connie get shot by a missile, it ripped a hole in the side, and you had your player having to lock on it, or you had the character having to lock on his mag boot so he wasn't sucked out.
We haven't.
That part was. I'm
trying to think, Algared. The last time we saw that was like a grey box, like 4 years ago. Do you remember that on ISC? And we haven't seen anything since. So it'd be cool to have an update on that.
But that's linked in with the fire propagation and the way they're doing the atmosphere and systems. And I know recently,
I'd agree with that.
I heard them talking about the ability to, vent a system or vent an area so that you can put out a fire or restrict oxygen into different rooms, and so or refill a room with oxygen. That's all related to that. If you've got a room that's full of oxygen and it gets punctured, then where the oxygen, the way they're doing the rooms, the oxygen will go to, or the atmosphere will go to where there's no atmosphere. That's going to cause that effect, and we're already seeing those movement effects of what happened. So yeah.
All right, we're going to answer these these 3 questions that are here, and then we'll do ISC, and any questions that come after that we'll do after ISC. But Riddick asks, Connie rework to implement the Mantis aesthetic soon? I'll answer this one. No, because the Connie is in some form of Squadron 42. We know this because it was, the nav mesh for planets. They had a similar nav mesh for ships, and that was the test bed. You remember this, don't you, Algared? And so if they change the layout of that, they have to redo all that work. So that's not going to happen. So I actually think the rework would come after at least the first Squadron. And I think they know how out of date that ship is, because there's obviously lots of complaints, struts, all that type of stuff. And I think the Mantis was kind of like them looking into that. And I do think there will be a rework, and I do think they'll offer like some kind of CCU upgrade. I think it'll probably one of those first ships. Remember when they talked about the Hornet treatment, and they talked about how you could have the old Hornet or you could upgrade it to the new one. I think that'll probably one of the first ships that get that.
And you look at complaint. Oh, you look at the Cutlass. The Cutlass when it first came out, and when they, remember when it was the freighter, the wallowing pig.
Yep.
And they actually, because people had said, hey, this was supposed to be the agile fighter as well as the cargo ship, and CIG said, well, we've actually changed. The Cutlass is more a freighter, so we're treating it like a freighter. But because we did sell it as a fighter, here's a Drake fighter for you guys, which you have a free CCU upgrade to. And that was the Drake Buccaneer. Yep. So the Buccaneer owes its existence to the kerfuffle caused by the Cutlass.
But in what world is the Buccaneer worth $10 more than the Cutlass? Again, I don't understand. They should have left them at the same price, but anyway.
Well, I think it was always more expensive. That's why they gave. It was always $10 more. That's why owners of the Cutlass actually were given a free CCU to it.
I'll let you answer this one, Algared. Ravenford asks, when do you think the 600i rework will appear? Will it increase the QT capacity? He says, he's like done in Italian, capacity.
Will it increase the quantum travel capacity of the 600? I have no idea where it's going to increase the capabilities. I would hazard a guess to say no. What that rework is really going to do is internals.
Yeah, so the rework is really internals. If you think about all the ships, how they rebalance them, every ship's going to change from what it is now. They're all going to be rebalanced. So, there's no point answering that, because next week or next month or next year they'll change it. Yeah. So every ship as it is now will not be the same. The one thing that was interesting that I will bring up here very briefly was where they talked about bringing in slowing all turrets now. So that's going to be really interesting, and they've got like a speed up time. So if you start spinning, it now takes time to pick up to the rotation speed. So that's somewhere between where they were and where the Redeemer is now. So that's interesting to see that might be a thing in the future.
And that was in the last patch notes, which they released for, I think, for Avocadi. And they talk about we're changing turrets so that they actually speed up to where they're going. So it's not just a rapid thing, but they will get there. And I think that just shows they're really just working at fine-tuning, getting things where they want. So they say, this is too good, let's swing it back this way. It's pendulum. You go one way, then you swing it back the other way, and then you kind of until you get that point where you're looking for. And good morning, Ice.
Yeah, likewise. Last question before we will start ISC. So Mikey1339 asks, when do you think they'll fix the Prospector airlock and fix storage cabinets of the opening? Like, yeah, so English is screwed here, but he basically means like the opening and closing of the cabinets and the different component doors. I would say along the lines of when they do the dropping of the saddlebags for refinery gameplay and stuff like that.
Yep.
But they'll give it another quick pass and they'll turn a lot of that stuff on and off, and they'll obviously come back to do components. When components come in properly, that'll be a massive patch, like absolutely huge. You'll get repair with that. You'll get that's going to be one of the biggest patches we've seen.
Even if it was I could see components coming in before repair, and that sounds really dumb because that enables you to take your component out, take it to your workshop if you're on a carrack, and do your work, or if you've got the old workbench, take it to your hangar, put it on the workbench and do the work to upgrade it or fix it or whatever, and then put it back in your ship. So I can see a real purpose where that works. I do have to before we do go to ISC, I do have to say, hey, for those who haven't checked it out, check out the vid for the Crux Cup that was on Sunday. It was absolutely really well done.
We can talk about that too after ISC if you want, so you can talk about it more extensively if you want. I've got no problem with that at all.
Check that out later. It was really good. Kudos to Southern Cross Alliance. And I'm biased, but kudos to Southern Cross Alliance for the Crux Cup that was run in Orison and surprisingly lag-free, that surprised me. So yeah. Anyway, ISC.
All right, let's kick it off. Let me know if you can't hear it, Algared. If not, say nothing.
I can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No.
I do not know what to do then, Algared. Sorry, because it should be working.
I will do what I was going to do.
Yep. I'll try that again. You can see it's just showing you the browser, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep. Hashtag professional. All right. Well, I've turned the volume to max, so.
Hey, y'all. Space Dad here. Processing your feedback while in the middle of the.
No, it works.
Did anyone else get creeped out by that? Just. Okay.
Development is a monumental task. It's no secret that the Star Citizen community has no shortage of opinions, and your tireless efforts in testing the persistent universe at all levels, from Evocati to PTU to even our live alpha environment, requires multiple initiatives to ensure that valuable feedback is properly received. Whether that's the developers themselves spending their time in Spectrum, Reddit, Twitch, and YouTube, to our growing community team and the likes of Ulf, Jake, Tamara, Christian, and more. Whew. As part of our continuing efforts to shine our proverbial spotlight on those folks who don't often get seen or heard from in traditional game dev spaces, we're changing up our origin story format this week to take a look at an entire team who outside of Evocati, folks may not even know exists. Whose efforts, much like those that we've just mentioned, is dedicated to collecting, processing, interpreting, and especially testing that feedback before passing it along to our developers for any potential action. So allow us to formally introduce you to the player experience team.
In player experience, we're basically one of the many voices of the players.
The reason why a player experience team matters
the most, because not compared to other teams.
Player experience actually takes the feedback from the community, actually understands the bugs that the live environment is facing,
and we'll use those to make the game better.
A day in the life of player experience team is
all over the place, actually.
Sorry, I have to laugh.
We almost don't know exactly what we're going to be doing that day.
We're kind of like the late crew here.
We start our day at 2 p.m.
to be able to play alongside players when these builds go out.
Beyond there, our day can exist from reviewing features that are upcoming.
We go to the issue council, we check to see what bugs have been reported in the latest builds.
One of our main objectives is taking those issues through the issue council and seeing if we can produce it in game.
Sometimes we get what are called QATRs, QA test requests from devs.
We report on those bugs, we tell developers here's what our findings were and how we got to the bugs, and here's what didn't work and what did work, and try all types of weird and interesting ways of breaking the game.
We're the gap between the players and the developers.
Working alongside the community team to make sure that your feedback gets heard.
There's traditional QA and we have the live QA from the player experience team. Traditional QA takes care of upstream features as they're getting developed, while player experience actually
attack things from a player experience point of view, going through the motions that a player would go through to try to target the issues in a way that dev QA probably wouldn't be able to reproduce.
Some of us take a look in the specializations of the game. Like I go into specialization of medical gameplay, so I could see the ins and outs.
I focus a lot of my time on mining and trading issues. Other members of the team
love to dogfight. Some people love to do FPS combat or missions or bounty hunt. It's all over the place.
So we have a great spread, and we kind of get to have fun doing what we are excited to do.
I think the main thing that I would want backers to know about our job and what our team does is that, we're listening to your feedback.
Our team itself is actually quite full of backers.
It kind of helps me put myself in their shoes rather than just look at the data and make a decision based off that data and not necessarily gameplay.
A joke made on the team a lot is that it's easier to learn QA than it is to learn Star Citizen. I already had my pet peeve bugs I wanted fixed. I already knew how the issue council worked.
I think it's important players do know that we see the issues, we see the issue council. We have some automated systems, and sometimes your issue council might say not a bug, but we are tracking it and we are aware of it. We go back manually and open them up when we see that happen, and we do want to address it and get it into the hands of the developers.
No, I'm not the reason your ship got nerfed.
Might be actually responsible for that a little bit. Don't put that in there, please. I know the Ares Ion has been brought up before.
Whenever we're looking to make changes to ships,
it's a very much involved process with a lot of decision makers.
We translate the concerns that players have and bring those into the developers' eyes.
So in essence, we're just the messenger. So.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
I just want to state something right here. Do you notice how they say they go to Spectrum and all that and blah, 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 and they check there for the player experience, but how many of us just don't go to Spectrum? And I would say a large percentage of people do not go to Spectrum.
Unfortunately, it's generally for trolls. And,
so
a loud minority that often goes.
Yeah, so if you're...
And I think it's the same with Reddit.
Yeah, so essentially if you're listening to Spectrum, that's a really bad idea. Because until they get and the biggest problem with Spectrum, right? And until they get downvoting, until you can take, because the very first person that comes there, they put their thing there, and it can only go up and up and up. If you read anything on how websites work, the statistics on the people that go to the second page, and even the people that just scroll down the page, is so low, it's not funny, right? So, literally, if you don't have a downvote arrow, there's no way to get them off the front page. It just doesn't work, right? And until they implement that, Spectrum is never going to be a voice for the people. It's never going to be that. So, yeah.
I think the only area where Spectrum can be a voice for the people is in the live chat, where...
Yep.
But then
I'd agree with that.
You've got to be there at the time when the chat is going on to actually hear it. And unfortunately, a fair day starts at their, Eastern United States or Western United States, 2 p.m. Well, that screws us. That's like 7, 8, 9 o'clock for us.
Yep.
So maybe the tail end or the beginning of our gameplay is when they're on.
Yeah.
But
do you know how many? I've once got a question that went on to one of those shows, and a moderator deleted it, and actual Disco brought it back up, even though it had been deleted. But that's the only question I've ever got on in 10+ years. So that kind of tells you, yeah.
Was that the why do you hate
the Endeavour?
so much?
Yeah. For John Crew, that's the only one. Yeah.
And I know that was a tongue-in-cheek one.
Yeah.
Because we know that it's just such a complex ship.
Yeah.
And it's got so many things in it, and you can almost see when it's on it. It's a roll of the eyes, not because I don't want to do this ship, I hate this ship. It's a roll of the eyes of how do we deal with this ship in terms of what it is and how big it is and all the gameplay it is.
It's definitely a behemoth.
And we're still building the groundwork and other things for it. So it is a problematic ship. It is certainly one I wouldn't want to be given the task of designing or building.
Shadow Girl's just stating there in chat, even the chat, what I found was that it's full of people that hate everything. I think it's people that like to complain or vent. I think people go there and vent, but by the same token, if you go there and you actually have critical feedback, like that's one of the things we I don't know if you guys noticed, but every time we try to give feedback in any form, it's not like this is shit, we're chucking hate on you. It's this is the problem, this is how we would at least fix it. And give examples of why it's wrong, and it's wrong this way because it should be more like this. So that's how you get. That's how, if you want something fixed, that's how you do it. You at least try to provide a solution or explain why it's wrong, and then they can see it and fix it. And if you just turn up and say I fucking hate it, that does nothing. That just sounds like as Shadow Girl said, like people that are hating on everything. You have to elaborate and. Yeah, go ahead.
And certainly give you as Execute saying, you need to give constructive criticism.
So
it's no good just saying this sucks. If you say it sucks, explain why you feel it sucks.
Yeah.
What are the factors that make it suck? And suggest possible ways you could fix it. Now,
it's just it's kind of lazy, isn't it? Just to go, this sucks and not tell them why. That's like turning up and saying, Algared, I hate you. And there's nothing you can do about it. Like, what do you do? How do I have to improve my behavior? Do I have to be more polite? Like, you don't know, right? And so until someone tells you what you're doing wrong, you can't fix it. And it's exactly the same, like in very simple terms.
Even with that, you look at the freelancer, development of a freelancer, and even the development of a Connie.
Yeah,
we're in version 4 of a Connie, because a lot of that is from player feedback.
Yep.
Now, certainly when the freelancer came out, or the Starfarer players were saying, oh, you need to do this because this will fix this. And CIG said, it won't work. And players said, no, it will. And CIG basically said, we've tried it, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work for these reasons, but the players kept on.
Yeah.
And so CIG said, okay, we'll do it the way you want. They did it the way we want, and basically the players said, it doesn't work. And CIG said, yeah, we told you. We told you, we basically tried this, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so in that instance, it was almost the reverse of what was happening, you know. So sometimes they literally do it. They've tried the suggestions we've done, and that was I found that one frustrating because they actually said, "Look, we've tried this; it doesn't work," and the players said, "No, we don't believe you."
Yeah. And at the time when that happened, I said, do not push this. They're going to retract what they and that's exactly what's been happening ever since. They've been sharing less and less and less every year. To bring this full circle, though, Algared, to tell people that they suck, you need the down arrow. There's no way to tell people that they suck if you can't vote them down. So I don't know how it would ever get through to them, but I'd love to. Because if you go on there and say anything negative, it just gets shut down. So if you go on there and say, I want downvoting, it just gets deleted by a mod. Like, just straight away. Just delete it. Or move somewhere, and then move somewhere else, and then move somewhere else. So, until they add it... And the funny thing is, I brought it up, and one of the guys in... I did it in a post years ago, and one of the guys in Montreal actually... like, a developer came in and upvoted it and said, I agree, it needs this, blah, blah, blah. So, there are people there that know it exists, but obviously there's someone there thinks it's a bad idea because it's going to cause conflict or whatever. But the thing is, isn't it anonymous when you downvote? So no one would, or upvote, so who cares? You know, and people already do, like, they do the Picard one, they do the thumbs down and stuff like that. But it just needs to be official to push it off the page. Once they're ratioed off, they need to go down. And I just don't understand, because it's democracy, is it not? What do they call it? Democratic, and that way the good stuff floats to the top. Well, if you're going to sit there and go and if you've got to sit there and sift through it all, you're not getting the good stuff. You're just getting the stuff that turned up first.
Well, I think initially we'd get the crap stuff because at the moment I tend to think that Spectrum does get filled with a lot of the trolls and very few people really go there for engaging conversation or discussion.
Yep.
Now I could be wrong. I occasionally go there. I occasionally stick my nose in and actually type stuff, but.
See, Shadow.
Times I'm going, oh no.
Shadow Girl brings up another really good point there, right? So it says another thing I experienced was when I was when the 400i came out, I tried to go leave some feedback, but I found a ton of people just commenting and had no intention of ever using the ship and just wanted it to suck. See, that'd be really cool if it actually maybe they have that data in the background, but it'd be really cool if it actually says owner of ship. Or owns this ship, or pledged for this ship. Because no offense, but I think that carries a bit more weight. Like, if you own said ship, you are more invested in it. But if their feedback is something like, this ship is just killing me all the time, it is too powerful, that is valid, right? Yeah. Or if you're giving feedback like this is doing way too much of, like, it's just too good, yes, you can read that. But if the person just turns up and said, says this ship is crappy, blah blah blah, or wants to shit on it, you need to be able to see those two sides. And I think not just for the developers, I think that's good for us because you can see the person's biases. So yeah,
and I think that's an important thing. Like, as a historian, one of the things you always want to do is check the bias in a source, and you want to check out how the source is working, and that's generally the same in anything. You want to understand where the person's coming from.
Shadow Girl, I don't think Spectrum is agnostic to different manufacturers. I just think it's a certain type of people, like you said, like people that just are venting, and some people that are on there just do not know how to critically talk how they should. Like let's be honest, most people are lazy, and text is a terrible medium for laziness. You just go, it's far easier to type "it sucks" than write a whole paragraph about why it sucks and explain why. And that's just how people are.
But the problem is, if you type your whole paragraph explaining why, people go, "Oh, wall of text."
yeah, exactly.
But on the other side, on the other point regarding where CIG do go to get their feedback, Ashton Ricks does point out that he thought they said they go to Spectrum, Reddit, Twitch, and YouTube, and we do know that they do watch YouTube because
we hear back.
We know sometimes we've had the feedback, hey, that CIG have basically seen what we've said. So we do know they do gather the information from everywhere, and I suppose it's trying to get the biggest pool of information. But there is also
I'm just picking up on Shadow Girls saying that. See, that's a big difference between me and Algared. I'm very concise, but Algared is very detailed. So you actually get two different things. So I'll say something really concise that I try to say in a way that people will remember, and Algared will go into the nitty-gritty details. And that's a really good juxtaposition between me and Algared. But,
and some of you guys hate it. Some of you guys hate when Execute says, "Al, hurry up!"
Yeah, because I'm trying to move things along, but that's just how it goes. So,
but I also know for other people say, "Execute, I don't want to consult. I want that detail."
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. People say to me, "Al, shut up. I just want give me 2-sentence word."
And Algared will tell you this as a teacher: you only retain 75% of what you hear. So the less you hear and the more concise it is, the more likely you are to remember it. So that's and my mum was a teacher as well. So that's a little bit where Algared and I kind of relate a bit when it comes to teaching.
I can recall, too long didn't read. Very useful.
All right, let's
recall, in education, just one of the things was the average age of an attention span of a person is said to be 1 minute for every minute of their life, up to 14. And so the average attention span of any individual is about 14 minutes. And if you're in a large group, you can actually see it.
You can actually see that in our analytics too. It's very common, between 12 to 15 minutes is the usual watch time of our video. So when I, like people go, "Oh, I want longer videos," I'm inclined not to do longer videos because they just don't get the views. We found that the short form content goes fairly well.
And people tend to watch for a whole lot. And you see that's what happened with CIG. CIG used to do significantly longer videos.
Yep.
But they tended to then shrunk them down. The other way, and yes, schools often have periods that are over, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 60 minutes long. And if there's a double period, it's like, 2 hours long. So how do you deal with that? You basically break your lessons up or try to break them up into chunks of 15 minutes. But if you're in a large audience and they're watching something, you can actually see it. Because you'll see every 15 minutes or so, you'll see what's called a gross postural shift. Someone will yawn, and then you'll see it literally ripple through the audience about every 15 or so minutes.
I think just quickly on our episodes, I always try to have the last word because then it's concise, and then we can move off, and I leave you with that little concise summary. But then Algared will be like, la, 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 and that drives me a little nuts because he knows I'm trying to leave that little concise thing, so he can go, oh yeah, just the takeaway. Here we go, off we go out of the episode, and then Algared's like. And they're like, you just fucked my summary. What are you doing? But anyway, that's all right. Let's get back to the episode. We've pressed.
You just forget things, but that's okay. We enjoy screwing each other up sometimes.
We do. All right, here we go.
If there's one thing I want everyone to know is we're all very much passionate about how this project is run because we absolutely believe and love the project.
Being able to interact with a very dedicated community definitely allows us to gain a lot of insight into what the game.
See, I bring that back though, Algared. Are they integrating with? Who are they? Well, unless or maybe in game. Maybe they're integrating.
Well, they're often in game, so they're often playing in game.
That would be the best place to meet people, I think.
And they also were saying earlier that they're often working a lot of time with Evocati. So they're in the test build, so they're working with Evocati and. Anyone who's in Evocati, while it's a buggy mess, and can stick it out, they're dedicated. You can't put it any other way. It's like playing in PTU when it's buggy. If you keep playing it, you're dedicated.
All right. And what the community envisioned the game to be.
In the end, they're the ones who are really supporting the game, and they're the ones who are playing the game, and we're making a game for people to play it and have fun. And I think that's the most important part of it.
People are at the heart of the Star Citizen experience, both from you outside and those within. And in the case of the player experience team, often the same folks transitioning from one to the other. And up next, it's time for another sprint report, so let's get to it. Let's start things off with these new docking areas being created for our high-tech space stations like August Dunlo found in orbit above the planet Crusader. Now, while docking came online a little while ago...
Wait, I gotta ask, lore-wise, what the hell's going on there? We got Port Olisar. Why are we getting another one?
No, these are docking collars at Orison.
Oh, at Orison. But he said above Orison.
Yeah, well, I think he meant above Stanton. That was my impression.
You mean above Crusader? Oh, above Crusader, not above Orison. Okay.
Crusader. Even I did it.
Yeah, cool. It's all good.
Several space stations and their respective archetypes still needed this work to enable docking at all the stations of the Stanton system. Next up, let's check in with the Drake Corsair and these gray box images of the mess hall interior, which looks to take...
That's very Caterpillar-ish here.
Yeah.
That's like directly cut from the Caterpillar.
It does look straight from a Caterpillar.
Yeah.
Some of its cues from what you may already be familiar with from the Drake Caterpillar.
What do you know? Anyway.
There's also the cockpit where pilots spend most of their time.
That's Caterpillar as well.
And an up-close look at the dashboard.
It's Drake.
And finally a look at perspective pilot visibility.
What do you think of that? That's kind of like Caterpillar meets Constellation.
It does kind of feel a bit like Cat because it kind of got that zeroed in front like a Connie, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you got those blind spots on the diagonals like the Connie. So yeah, it's different.
And the dashboard is kind of blocking that lower.
I don't mind it. It's not terrible. You get most of it.
Pluses and bonuses.
We've also got these looks at the Drake Vulture, which is currently rounding out final art phase with some perspective liveries.
So if this is final art phase, but it's not here until 3 months' time, that tells you they're going to be working on Salvage for quite a bit. You'd have to say, yeah.
Let's go ahead and do one of those social media quizzes in the comments. Which one is your favorite? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Right, in chat, 1, 2, 3, or 4. What about you, Algared? You can answer first. What were your favorite? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
1 or 4.
Mine was 2 or 4. But yeah, I'll let us know. I'll play it a bit more. Yeah, they come through 2.
And from brand new ships to
3. You guys like the black and white? Okay, 4, 2, 2. Yeah, see, a lot of people like the 2. Yeah, the people that like 2, is it because it's similar to the one for the raft, that black and orange? That's what it reminded me of. And the red, I just like the red because it was different. Do you know how rare red ships are in this game? They're rare as shit.
Yeah.
We just don't get them.
I like the red one for basically the same reason. It kind of had that it picked up that vibe of an emergency vehicle, and you can almost see salvage vehicles being in that emergency aspect as well. But
I would have said more like construction, so kind of like orange, like an Argo. But
well, that's what to me the first one was basically that construction.
Oh, that's true.
But
that's true. The black does make it a little bit like the Reclaimer. I've just realised. Yeah, it looks industrial. Looks industrial. Sean Solo just said that.
If you're looking for a rescue vehicle that's cutting things away, then and breaking into the ship so you can get to those who are trapped or whatever, then that's some form of salvage vehicle. So you can see rescue having those salvage vehicles, but
yeah.
Those that have seen better days, let's take another look at the continuing development of our upcoming Reclaimer derelicts. Now, as part of the work our Montreal team is doing, most derelicts will fall into one of 3 categories: old, new, and inhabited.
All right, Algared, I've got to ask you this. If they're working with a Reclaimer on derelicts, does it make you wonder what else they're working on the Reclaimer with? With salvage just around the corner? Like, is that am I wrong in that thinking path?
Who knows? I imagine they're certainly working in terms of it being able to do the salvage. But I think that the idea of the really nice thing is the inhabited wrecks. So this one, you can actually see that you've kind of got bits of a ship being reused to build habitation areas, and that ties in with other settlements we've got in the verse, where we've got old, what used to be old Bengals. I'm not sure what type of carrier they are now. On at least 2 planets, you've got. So
it'd be kind of cool to see them like take down one of the engines off the Reclaimer and it's like turned into a house, or like split into 2 and it's 2 different houses or something. Yeah.
Or the engine's been taken off and it's been rejigged so it's working.
Yep.
But it's now being used as a power source.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, things like that. That'd be really cool. And different versions of that, which does take time, unfortunately. But it'd be interesting if you could do it with different manufacturers. So like that have similar engines. So how you've got you could almost cheat it a little bit. So like you got RSI has those certain engines. Like you can similar look on the Connie, and then there's a similar one on the Perseus, and there's a bigger one on the Bengal. So you could almost use the shape language and not quite tell who it's from, but and you could probably just scale it up and down a little bit to figure out who it's from. But yeah, you get me.
But I think that like the beauty of doing it with multiple ships, and I know, as you said, this would take time, but the beauty of that is when you scatter these wrecks, or different wrecks around the universe, and you got, say, one Reclaimer wreck or one inhabited Reclaimer wreck, and the next one you come to is different. It adds that vitality and vibrancy to the verse and to the system and the areas. And then when you've got the NPCs even living there and having the nav mesh for them, again, it adds to that vibrancy and
I just want to know if you can run up that Reclaimer and jump off the end. Like, well, welcome to Scrapper Salvage's base jumping tours. You jump off and parachute
it's
around.
It's okay, we have a regen machine right here.
Splat, yeah. All right, here we go.
And as part of those inhabited, you can see here preliminary work on housing modules to be found both outside and within the wreckage itself. Tech is also being developed to allow the overall object container that contains the derelict within to pick up biome information from wherever it's dynamically spawned. That means if it's spawned in snow, it gets snow covering, or in this case, ivy and a variety of plant growth.
My question is that dynamic enough to look different every single time?
Yeah.
So if it's the same snow every single time, or are there layers of it? So like, is it like just a little bit of snow or a lot of snow, or and can it procedurally generate that look so it's different every single time? And I'm assuming it is, right? Because if they're going to this level, they're going to need to, because otherwise you're going to go, oh, that's that stock standard snow Reclaimer every single time. So I don't think
I would imagine possibly the different components would have a similar similar layer.
You can do it with shade. You can do it with shaders to change it quite a bit. Like if you go back to the, do you remember when they were doing the food stuff, Algared, and they had the different baked beans and stuff? So you can use the texture and the normal max procedural. It should be easily doable. Easily.
So if they're doing it procedurally, I would hope they'd have 2 or 3 pipes that they'd use for each one.
Yep.
But then if I'm understanding what they're wanting to do here, it'll be like the base, like the star bases, where they get the tools and say, okay, this is the area, these are the base shapes, and then it'll recreate it and put different ones down. And then those layers would go on. So you'd go to one.
Well, it's not just
the
it's not just the snow as an example. It'd also be the rust on the ship, the wear on the ship. They can turn that up and down too. So you're looking at like 10 different layers of or combos of thereof that you could actually overlap, and so they could literally make every single difference. The only thing, and it's kind of like with the space stations, is the layout of that derelict. So you might have that one big wreck, but like you know how they got the big back part. They might have that in 4 different positions. So they, or whatever, and then the things that are spawned around, kind of like what happens with outposts. Essentially, that's what it looks like they're doing. They're making derelict outposts, and this might be the first one as a test bed, and then they'll move on to other ships. So, a lot of the derelicts we've seen in the past, they've been a bit samey, but it looks like that they're going back, and this whole derelict team might be a thing where they go through every single ship in the game, and that's just going to make wrecks for days. If you do, it's going to take time, obviously, because it's like building outposts. But if they go through and do every ship in the game, like every location's going to feel different. And then
you're looking at those wrecks.
Just hang on. One more thing, and then you combine outposts and derelicts together. There's a whole nother vein again.
Yep. And when you're looking at those wrecks, it's not just a like the wreck Det Javelin on Daymar. It's those plus wrecks that are usable, plus wrecks that have got settlements around them. I'd like to see those settlements being settlements that are some of those buildings that are in those settlements around wreck having used parts of you can see where they've ripped off a wall from a ship and it's being used as part of the habitation, or the cargo pod been pulled off and it's now being used as a part of that habitation area. So you see the survivors kind of cobbling together
so I can't increase Marcus is asking if I can increase your mic. I can't increase Algared's mic, but what I could do is I could probably lower mine to match, because I've actually got Algared at max. So are we about the same? Tell me if I'm too low now. I've turned myself down a couple of notches, and if I've gone too low, just let me know. All right, we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
The team is also building up a new library of derelict shaders for various stages of composition. And when all this is brought together, it'll mean a greater variety of points of interest for you to discover.
The other thing, Algared, is those shaders wouldn't just be like that. You could take those shaders, and a lot of them would work on, at least on the other Aegis ships, because obviously the colouring and stuff like that. But that's the other thing. What if they actually go in again and start to do colours? So you could have a red reclaimer, a blue reclaimer. You get where I'm going with this. And then you could have decals and stuff like that, and Wacky Jackie's reclaimer or whatever. So they can totally customize every single location, which is interesting.
And new mission areas spawned once you accept the job, all dynamically placed and dressed as needed. And before we move on, a short video look at the interior habitable spaces currently being fleshed out.
So there's another thing, Algared. All that spam junk inside, that makes every single one different as well. So you can just start to see this layering effect where, yes, it's procedurally generated, but like you've just got so much that no two will ever look the same.
And that's before you get your artists go in and...
Yep, the colours, all that type of thing,
And that is my understanding is that's what makes Star Citizen's procedurally generated stuff so different from, say, No Man's Sky.
So I think it's different to every other game, because every other game you might have 3-4 sliders. Like how many... Like the one I think of is Left 4 Dead. Like you'd walk in and you'd go, okay, so this is that segment, so I know that this is L-shaped because I've been here so many times before, right? Where with this, there is just so many sliders, so to speak, or things that you can cross and lay over each other, that it's when they go, oh, there's 50 billion combinations or whatever. I think in this there's like a billion times more that again, but whatever, it's crazy.
Well, And to reiterate on that, I agree. If they've got that procedural ability to make so many, but then the fact that they go in and they will touch up, even if it's just, I don't like that colour they've got there, and they change the colour, or they add an extra plant here, or all of that type of stuff just makes it so much more vibrant.
Yeah, what did they say back in the day? 30% customized, 70% procedural, and I think that 30% makes a big difference. Like even right now, every elevator in Stanton is the same elevator with a texture change, but like it makes enough. It's enough. Like it feels different. The panel that you click is different. It's got different art on it, but fundamentally, at the end of the day, they're all exactly the same elevator.
Yeah, well, you look at some of the space stations. They look the same, and yet, if you go to a mining station, they've got the mining arms and all the rest of it out there. But then you go into the main areas and you go, oh, this is the offices around here. And you, oh, hang on, no, it's not. It's up the stairs and around the corner, not up the stairs and to the left. They're just little subtle changes that are done procedurally that make each of those stations different. And then within that, devs have actually gone in and added little touches as well.
And once the maps come online, a lot of that will be even better, I think, because you'll actually be able to find stuff pretty quickly. All right, here we go.
Sound stopped, by the way.
And then lastly...
Sorry, what was that?
I said the sound had stopped, but it's back now.
All right, sorry.
Let's take a look at current VFX progress on the handheld salvage beam we discussed on last week's Star Citizen Live with Mike Snow.
So that has literally confirmed what I was saying all along. See, it's stripping the hull, and Repair will be putting it back. So this is actually the first confirmation we've had of that.
Now, while it's important to state that this effect you're seeing here is not final, repeat, not final, and this is a showcase only of the VFX involved, I hope we can all agree this is still really cool as heck. I mean, just look at this thing. The way the particles are being atomized and sucked up off the hull of the ship. I'm gonna tell you, I just kind of sat and watched this on loop for about 5 minutes straight and was thoroughly mesmerized. In fact, Amanda, let's change up the music and just let this play out for a bit. Really get our zen on. I said get our zen on. You're messing with me.
Literally ruining the video. I'd rewatch this on mute.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll learn more about
So that literally confirms what we've been saying. Like, so you can clearly see the grid underneath, and that will be the extra layer of repair that you get out of something bigger like a Crucible. And so that's that I'm talking about repair and salvage here, because we know that they've said that they're mirrors of each other. So you'll probably peel off all that paint and then send it through to be crushed. And those things on the front of it will strip the paint on the Vulture, but he's obviously hand salvaging. The other thing I do want to point out is he's got that massive grav thing on his back. The big what the hell is that called? What's it called?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I
remember brain fart. Tractor beam.
Ship-based and handheld next quarter ahead of its much anticipated introduction to the persistent universe.
It is a little bit
tractor beam.
Yeah, it is
Shield Nova or whatever. However, I say your name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is a little bit like a tractor beam too, though, for salvage. Though, if you look at it, like the way it's working, but it's more like a misting thing.
So, what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that it takes quite a bit to keep up with the massive amount of feedback the players provide, and then it's all hands on deck with the developers, the community team, the player relations team, and more to do it. And I'm going to name drop the customer service team and the concierge team because they deserve a shout out too. That Derelicts are shaping up to bring new gameplay opportunities through old and busted spaceships. And that the day when we can leave messages for others in the hull of abandoned spacecraft using the handheld salvage gun are close at hand. What will you write first? For Inside Star Citizen.
It's not what they're going to write, it's what they're going to draw. Anyway.
Listen, I'm Jared Huckabee.
Yes.
We'll see you all next week.
Yes, I think that's the problem. The salvage gun is going to create the massive dicks. There's no other way to
in more
put
ways
that.
than one. Yeah, in
Yes.
more ways than one.
But the dicks will draw dicks.
Yeah. All right, let me switch this back over. Okay,
I know. In that example, they were using the multi-tool, and I see a problem with the multi-tool for salvage.
Really? I thought it would be really good for it. I was thinking there myself, like when you blast it away with the the blast things, and then you can like use it to push a really big one into the.
Oh look, it's the multi-tool for doing salvage is a great idea. But where does the sucked up salvage stuff go on the multi-tool? There's no space for storage on it. So you'd need a backpack where you plug it in and
well, it obviously, as a hand multi-tool, it can only do a much smaller amount, where when you're putting a piece into the actual vulture, it's stripping all the paint off and it'll probably do it much quicker. And then that last, the actual wing, let's say it's a wing, that actual cage, I don't know what to call it, like the actual physical piece that's the grid, and you saw the grid underneath, that's going to float to the back part and it's going to get sucked into the cruncher and get crunched up and then taken inside and compressed into little cubes.
So certainly in the vulture, but for hand mining, I would hope that it'd be linked to or whatever tool they put it on, and they did say it was only kind of test bed to check the effects and all the rest of it. So yes, I'm probably being pedantic and pushing it, but I would hope that whatever system it was linked to a backpack. And maybe a small, large, medium, whatever. So
now, before I crack into game, is there anything that we wanted to look at here that came out this week or not?
I did quite like the Home Sweet Home article. That was a lore piece. Looking at the perspective of a Tavaran who was living in on Aramis or Vega 2, Aramis being the city that the Vandal wiped out. And in that article, they were saying, I saw myself as a citizen of a UE. We didn't get support. My partner and I, we decided we'd go to Banu, which is the independent system where Tavaran have gathered, the diaspora of Tavaran have gathered there, and they're trying to rebuild their culture. But the article almost hinted at the types of things that I know Paul has talked about and we've talked about in the past, is the possibility or setting the stage for a possible third Tavaran war, or at least a Tavaran civil war. Because it really showed the differences in terms of what was and the writer of that article is a Tavaran with a human name, and he goes in and says, my parents gave me this name because we were UE citizens. And as he goes on, he talks about the difference in Banu, where they seem to be way back in the ancient days and building this hatred among Tavaran, and then you've got the situation in the UEE on Aramis, and he actually says he goes back to Aramis, and that's where you get the impression that that's where the home sweet home really is. Wasn't on Banu, but it was actually back in Aramis, where in the UEE, where this particular Tavaran felt back at home.
There's a saying called "Home is where the heart is," so yeah, I can relate to that. I just want to go back to what Jose is saying there in chat. He said, "I thought I heard something about an actual pack you'd be able to wear to store salvage material." Well, that may be a possibility. I'm thinking of the multi-tool, and it would just have like little containers. Wouldn't you just take the containers off, put them in your backpack, and then put an empty one in?
Yeah,
that's where my brain went. But I don't know, Jose. That's just me guessing. And that could very well be it. And I was just really nitpicking, especially when you consider that Jared did go to pains to stress that this was earlier. It was just showing the effects. It's not final. It's not, and so to be nitpicking that level at this point in time, it would be, I think, is unfair. So, I did find this interesting on the roadmap too. We've got terrain snow displacement, so when you walk around, it'll do footprints, and destructible environments. Like, I didn't think that would be a thing we saw in this game. That's Battlefield S type shit. So that's literally, wow, Or I know we had defamation for grenades, but like environments, is that just trees and stuff? Like, or does that actually carry over to buildings? Like, I want to know. I want this detailed out a little bit more. Is that like what's the level of that? Because there's a very big difference between partial and like full, and
man, I really like the idea of a footprints because, people look at, oh, yeah, I walk along this 9 leaf footprints, but that also, to me, ties in with animals and
bounty hunting,
big game hunting.
well. Yeah.
Oh, big game hunting. You know, get those trophies on the wall. Yes, execute. Tis, bad Algared. And old man Hurston, he likes his trophies on the wall.
Yeah, you've talked about that a few times before, but yeah.
Yep.
All right then. I think I'm gonna load up in the game and we'll start taking some questions as well. So just give me a moment to get in.
I think I'm still in download mode, so I'm out for joining you in game. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I do know there were some people saying they were hoping that Wave 1 would hit this weekend, but there were a few blockers. I think, I don't know. I'm hopeful, but worst case scenario, it's another week. But as you said, it's a fairly large patch here, so that's
Well, I actually shut it down so it wasn't draining on the old internet as we were streaming. So I'm not sure where it is now, but it was certainly downloading. And after about an hour, it was about hour and a half. It was about halfway through. So that surprised me. I don't know whether it was just time of day I was doing it. Usually, it's a lot quicker. So my experience was, hey, this seems like a big one. But go back to what I was talking about beginning of the session. Crux Cup was on the weekend. We had about 20 ships flying around Orison, around the Ahumani racetrack at Orison, along with 5 or 6 officials. There were probably about 25 to 30 people around Orison flying ships. Lack of lag was impressive. A lot of the people would just turn off the cloud tech. You can catch the stream now, I think, on at Croncy's Twitch site. I think he's put the vid up now of the Crux Cup stream. But yeah, we were surprised.
I've got to message DG360 because it's saying he's in the menus. He never plays this game. What the fuck is going on? I'm gonna message him.
So yeah, that was huge. The big thing that surprised me was the ship to beat, the racing ship to beat in Orison was the Drake Herald. So our own namesake, our own little icon ship was the Racer. I think the top 5 ships through were all Heralds. And if you looked at the A-Crux in the Crux Cup, which is the pinnacle, the professional races, I think every one of those bar one was a Herald. Even in the open category where you could take anything, there were a few Heralds and other ships. It was interesting to see our C2 racing. So we had, a C2 and a Reclaimer. Yes, Execute. A Reclaimer was in the Crux Cup. It took about 30 minutes to do one lap. Jeez. Whereas the Herald was doing the lap, I think the fastest Herald lap was like 3 minutes and 6 seconds. So that was really fast. So the Crux Cup was back. It was, for me, that was awesome because, it has a soft spot in my heart. But it was great to see us finally actually get in game. One of the things we had always wanted was to do PU, but the systems weren't there to really help us. And Echo Bit, who's in the SCA, he did a lot of work in terms of mapping out the racetrack, and then Gentleman Jez did a lot of work in terms of working out the rules for the race and tying it very closely to the endurance esport kind of car racing game, which he does a lot of. But a lot of work and very smoothly run competition. So I will sing their praises, but as I said, the thing that surprised me was the fact that the Drake Herald, a Drake ship, was the ship to beat, and it fits with the image you get of of the Herald as well, being this really fast, cockpit with engines strapped on the back. So check out Croncy's stream of the Crux Cup.
How long did it go for, the whole stream?
The stream went for a couple of hours. The biggest issue we had was the launcher. So we started off, we'd heard people were going to try and I
was going to ask real quick, do you think they're going to do a summary video?
I will check on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd probably
But
think
the
it's a
race
good
is-
idea.
The race itself,
Because someone told
the
me
race itself was an hour.
someone told me people only had the attention span of 14 to 15 minutes. So
Yeah. The race itself was only an hour. Went for an hour, so it was an hour endurance race. Basically doing as many laps of the racetrack as you could in that hour. The beautiful thing about Orison, which is different from every other area, is that the spaceport is basically at the level of those towers, give or take a bit. And so you can actually have a racetrack with a pit lane. And so because you're in atmosphere, because you're burning your hydrogen.
Albert, are you noticing there's NPCs? Are you noticing there's NPCs walking around like they should be? What's going on?
You've got
a new what's going on?
But the really nice thing was, the fact that in that race you actually had to go and refuel. So
okay.
I think the only ship that could actually get around without needing to refuel was the Reclaimer. So the Reclaimer could actually fly for the hour time around the racetrack without refueling. I think the 400i could do the same, but every other ship would need to refuel at least once. The Herald was refueling every 4 laps. During the hour, they did about 16 to 18 laps. So that gives you, an idea of a race. But just the fact you had 20 people racing around at the same time, from Auroras in the Aurora Classic to the A Crux at the top of the line. It just made it a really, really good event. Anyway, I've probably sung SCA's praises and Croncy's praises.
All right, well, let's move on to the questions then. JM asks, question, when do you think they will give a second exit for the MSR? It's a very popular ship. The really easy option is to just make it so that elevator goes to the ground, but if they do that, I'll be so mad. I think they need to do it through the vent network. I think you and I talked about this before, Algared.
Yeah, I think we have. But I think they probably will go the elevator. It makes...
I want the elevator. I want the elevator removed, and I want it made to stairs. But you know this. I've complained about it so many times.
But my problem if they do that with the elevator is not the fact they're using the elevator, the fact that it's just the same position. So you're basically in the same position of a ship. You're not in a different location of a ship. You're still got the problem. The entrance is right next to all the components. The only entrances are next to the components, which makes it null and void putting it there. So.
So I'll just let you guys know that these, as long as we've got questions, we'll keep streaming. But if the questions dry up, we'll head off. So we've got about 6 questions left. So yeah, if you have a question, just preface your question with the word question, and the bot will pick it up and we'll answer it. Did you have anything else to add there, Algared? Sorry, I think I cut you off a little bit.
No, I think I more or less finished.
All right, you want to read the next one for me?
Because I'm watching the stream, I actually don't have our questions streamed.
Well, you better bring up Discord and chop.
I did have Discord up. That's why, because I'm watching your stream.
See, I've got
to get out of your stream. Let's stop watching your stream. Go to there. Where am I?
I might head over to Crusader L1 to sell this. I reckon. Pad 11. So I was mining with John and Puppet Master.
Yep.
And oh shit, I went to the wrong one. And you definitely notice the difference when you mine with John. In one run we made more money with John than we did in 3 runs with me and Puppet.
Oh yeah.
He's just so good at fighting shit, and he does it so quickly. Like we're like there for hours checking this rock, nothing. Literally, like the second rock he looked at had like, I think it was like 25% Quantanium. I was like, what the fuck? Oop. No!
I'm trying to check 18th to the 3rd today. Okay, so we've got... not sure what Voodoo was asking.
We're up to...
On the same lines.
The question is from JM. That's the... no, hang on. Death Trooper 177 is the next question, sorry.
Okay, so Death Trooper 177 asks, is this game a fighter pilot game or a capital ship gameplay? Because it seems this game has some identity issues, especially when it comes down to quantum and fuel travel.
Yeah.
The answer to that is yes, 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 yes.
You're almost
yes,
talking about
and yes.
now and later. So right now it's very much a light fighter. What the fuck?
Well, it's in everything.
What the?
Like,
I don't even own a Dragonfly. What the fuck?
Who knows?
And the fact that it did the cargo around it, that's kind of impressive.
I don't know.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes, the game is at the moment really focused on
light
fighters because they're the most prevalent in game. So gameplay does focus around that. But the game is more than that. The game is fighters, capital ships, touring ships, ground combat, space combat, ground delivery, space delivery. It is, you name a game that's out there, and Star Citizen is basically sucking into that type of gameplay. It is a PvP game. It is a PvE / co-op game. It is a straight PvE game.
The other way to answer this is to say they're building it in stages, and so obviously the most common thing, like light fighters, is going to pop up before massive capital ships. Yep. And what you're essentially described in his question is he's describing the progression, because you're going to start out with light fighters and move up to that bigger ships, and you can see that. So instead of having levels like a traditional MMO, you're going to start out on your own, and then it's going to you're going to go, oh, now I want to work with a few more people. Now I want to be in a capital ship, and the end game will be those huge, massive capital ship battles and the org and all that type of stuff. So it's a natural progression to make you work with other people.
Yeah, and in terms of things like the fuel, that's really looking at the game going forward. The game is set over 100 odd systems, which will be hopefully as filled with points of interest and other things as Stanton. And I think we'll get a gauge of that or where they want to go. We get a gauge of that with Stanton. I think we'll get an even better view of that when we go into Pyro. And from the stuff we've seen of Pyro so far, I can't say we're going to see less. In fact, I think they added stuff to Pyro to make it, to kind of give that. But those fuel issues are things they've always wanted. They want that fuel to be an issue. They want you to need those guys buying and selling fuel. They want you to be harvesting fuel and selling fuel and refining fuel. So it is, it's not that it's got an identity crisis. It's that we're only seeing, a bit like blind men looking at an elephant. One man feels the tail and says, "Oh, it's narrow. It's spindly," and another one feels the trunk and says, "Oh, it's."
I've just linked JM our video on Stanton is Tiny.
Yep.
I think that'll help him a little bit.
Yeah, I think that would also be useful for Death Trooper.
Oh shit! I linked it to the wrong person. Shit. Sorry, I was meant to link it to Death Trooper. Senior moment. Sorry, Death Trooper. There he is.
But JM, it is a good video to watch. The Stanton is Tiny video, and I would recommend anyone watch it. And if you click here, hopefully execute.
Well, it ended up going viral. Kind of did, but it didn't. It went. The whole concept went viral, but we didn't get credit for it. But it doesn't matter. Yeah. But it was just kind of cool to see it. It appeared up on Reddit. It appeared on Spectrum, and people making infographics going like, "This is Stanton, this is this system," and holy shit, and yeah.
But it is something that I know. You, Paul, we've talked about
many
times. And Stanton is a blessing and a curse for us at the moment. It's a blessing because we've got so much in the system and so many places. I don't think I've yet to see every point of interest that's out there, and even the places that aren't points of interest.
Yeah.
You go to some of the asteroids and you fly through and you say, "Oh, there's a destroyed space station here." just there, just because it's filling up the gap. So there's lots to see, even if it's not considered a point of interest. And then there's other things to do. And yes, it still feels empty, and yet there's so much to do. And yet there are other systems that are so much bigger than Stanton, Pyro being an example. And just that depth of gameplay or depth of environment we're going to have is awesome. But it means that at the moment we're spoiled because we've got so much. which is going to make it harder when we go elsewhere. But it's also very contained, so we don't see that need for fuel as much as we'll see it in other systems. So moving right along, Riddick says Drake Mole. What is it?
Drake Mole.
I think you may have referred.
The vulture. The vulture.
I think you may have called the vulture the mole.
Yeah.
If that's not the case, Riddick, please chuck another question in there.
It's a starting salvage ship akin to the Prospector, but for salvage, essentially.
Yep. So the Drake Vulture is the starting ship akin to the Prospector, but I'm assuming that either Execute or I misspoke and we misnamed it because we're human and we make mistakes because we're tired and we either have too many ships or we've been doing this game and covering the game and looking at ships for so long we just make errors. So Shadow Girl. Hello Shadow Girl, lovely to see you this morning. Has a question.
Yep.
Do you guys like fantasy RPG games? If so, I highly recommend Pathfinder Reef of the Righteous. In answer to that, I don't know about Execute, but yes, I am a fantasy RPG game player. I did play, certainly in MMOs, I did play Lotro, EverQuest.
EverQuest.
Yeah, that's what we used to call it because it was addictive.
Yeah.
Like WoW, Dark Age of Camelot, Guild Wars 2. Lord of the Rings Online. So yeah, my pedigree for those online games is, and even the remake of Ultima Online, and the new kind of version that came out with Garrett, but I can't remember because I didn't like it that much. But
Bike's gone. Look, just gone.
Mm-hmm.
As for me, I would love to. I have to play a lot of online games because just where I live, there's just not enough people and stuff, and there's a lot of pre-established groups and stuff, so it's very hard to kind of break into some of that stuff. So I basically just don't know enough people in real life to do that stuff, but I'd love to.
Yes.
And Algared will tell you I vicariously basically live online because there's just not enough people here.
And my old pen and paper group, which is why my name is Algared, by the way, from my old pen and paper role-play games. And my name should have been Algared because it was an elven word meaning glorious light. Ag being the light, Gared being glorious or something like that. And I had a typographical error and the L and G got swept around, so it just became Algared. When it was pointed out, the name had already stuck and was in, so it just stayed. Bit of history of Algared's creation there. But yeah, at the moment, our roleplay group, we're meeting fortnightly online because we're spread all over Sydney and New South Wales now, and we are playing Pathfinder ourselves. So
there you go.
So there you go.
All right, next question, Algared.
Dev Trooper 177 says, moderators delete a lot of legitimate questions. Not a question, but a statement. And yeah, they do. Sometimes I think there's that fear of they don't want things to get out of hand, and I can understand that desire to protect. But there's also that side of if it's too heavy-handed, it actually cuts and deletes and stymies discussion.
I think the other thing is I don't think they ever let people. For me, oh shit, I'm going to the wrong place. I just realized. They don't ever let you edit your question. So if they don't like it, why don't they just message you and say, "Can you please reword this or rephrase your question?" They're too heavy-handed, essentially.
Yep.
They should give you an opportunity to change it. So it's like, we've hidden this post until you reword it. And then when it's reworded, it comes back to a moderator, and then a moderator can approve it or deny it. And then they can delete it. But yeah, obviously that's got to be written in, but if they're not having downvotes, they need to do something, because it's not working. Let's be honest, it ain't working.
But I'll talk about our own channel. There are times we have issues with moderation. Where someone's done something and we look at it and go, yeah, look, and we've had times where someone said something and our moderators have been split, and we've been split on how to deal with it.
Yep.
And sometimes we've taken it down because we figured it's too divisive. Sometimes we've said change it. Sometimes we've said, hey, we've taken it down because of these reasons. So even we have those problems. And there are days when I know when our moderators go, I'm just so tired of this. I can't cope with it today. I'm just having a shit day, and this is the last straw for me.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we've got several mods though too, so everyone can have a break and rotate and
But our community is significantly smaller than what the mods on Spectrum are copying. So
agreed.
And we've also got that situation where a lot of people have abandoned, and a lot of us don't go to Spectrum as often as we used to, and that means that Spectrum does get filled with a lot more of those ghastly vitriol.
Well, I don't
things. So, would you want to be a mod there? I personally wouldn't.
I don't know about you, Algared, but I stopped going to Reddit when they allowed memes because the whole thing's just memes now. It just killed it for me, personally. But yeah.
Yep. So to change tack a little bit, Simon Wolf asks,
why can't I sell anything?
Yeah, I've had that problem. I can't sell it. I've got stuff in my I did some mining. I've got some ore in one of my ships. I can't sell it. It's always greyed out. So it's a problem at the moment, I think.
Anyone suggest where I go to sell this ore in chat? Let me know.
Simon Wolf has a question for us. He says, I'm hearing fears that the BMM may be get nerfed, as it will be too OP as is. Your thoughts? The Carrack wasn't nerfed. It's probably the most OP ship in terms of what it can do. So
I actually think the thing that people are not realizing is there is actually massive drawbacks to that Banu Merchantman now.
Yeah,
it's kind of like an 890 jump crossed with a cargo ship. So there's a lot of superfluous rooms in that ship, so it's going to cost a lot to because it's as big as an 890 jump. You've got to pay. Think of all the costs to run an 890 jump, but you're also transferring cargo. So there's this luxury shopping element about this ship that, say, something like the Privateer won't have. So the Privateer is more like a commons person's shopping mall. This is more like a high market bazaar, boutique. Yeah, and so there's a expense. Excuse me, to running it.
Yeah, the question I've got is in terms of size. How big is it going to be compared to the Carrack? We know the Carrack is kind of
it's very similar. It's very similar to the 890 Algared. Very similar.
The size in terms of 890, if it's fuel costs or anything like an 890, you're looking at about 40 to 50,000 to fill up the hydrogen. From about that's 50% hydrogen refuel was costing me 45,000 the other day. So those costs are significant. That's going to have an impact on the ship. But that's also going to have an impact. That'll be a similar thing that the Carrack, has.
Shifting gears, you're telling me I got to fly all the way back to ArcCorp where I just came from? Son of a bitch. Isn't there anywhere? Can't I go to like Hurston and sell it at Hurston? I guess I can go there. I don't know.
Well, my ship's currently at ArcCorp, and I still can't sell any of my my refined ore. So,
all right. Well,
even though I was told that's where you can sell it, but
we'll go to Area 18. See what happens.
So yeah. So, am I concerned that the BMM is going to get nerfed? It'll get balanced. It'll get balanced to the way they intend it to be.
Yep. Exactly.
I don't really expect, I'm not really too concerned. Will it get nerfed in terms of what it can do? Some people would say it was already nerfed when it grew in size and was no longer the small, fast, slick clipper ship, which was part of the idea of how it was built. It was originally built as kind of those 18th century, 19th century clipper ships.
That's been replaced now, because that's what the Raelian is. The Raelian is clearly what it was meant to be originally.
Yeah, and we've kind of said, well, the Raelian kind of comes across as that that clipper ship, that fast clipper ship.
Would they call it a blockade runner? Was a term they used as well.
Yeah. So American Civil War, those clipper ships that were running the blockades in the Confederate ports. My concern with Aurelian is always, when I look at the lore, and you got the Xeon loving the MISC hull series. So much so that they actually went into partnership, the Xeon companies went into partnership with MISC. So they could A, build the hull ships under license, and B, it's why we've got the Freelancer. The Freelancer is that combination of Xeon and human tech, which came out of the Xeon love of the hull series.
That's probably why. Algared, you probably answered your own question. That's probably why, because their ship was so bad.
Yeah, but the Raelian is a new ship.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this,
I think those pods things are going to be really bad. But just from everything I know, I've heard, and everything we've talked about, I think they might be one of the worst ships from a cargo load and unload perspective. But we'll see. It might be really good because the pods come down and you can just take the stuff out. So you can, you might. I don't know. I have to wait and see. I've got a big question mark on that because of those pods.
I don't know how the pods are going to work, but I think you're right. The fact that those are actually kind of external. They're not the cargo itself, it's external kind of cases for the cargo to go in. That means loading and unloading those is going to take time, whereas certainly the hull series has that step up on the...
So Death Troopers had a follow-up question that he's just put in chat, so while we're talking about the BMM, I think we'll answer this one as well. So he says, is the BMM military or civilian? To me, the current design doesn't look like the original. No, that's 100%, because it's morphed, as we just said. I don't find it military. I find it a bit like the 890 jump, don't you? Where it's kind of overgunned for defense purposes.
Yeah, I certainly when it was first done, it was a civilian ship, but the way in which the Banu were originally described is basically they're a loose confederation of groups, and the families will all get together when there's a threat, and so they were basically militia ships, and so their biggest militia ships were their BMM. Was the idea that came out. That law for the Banu, which was very 12-inch paintbrush type thing, so very very broad and very brief, has certainly been tied in more, and now we've got specific family groups doing different things. So we've got a specific Suloi that builds ships. So the Defender is built by a specific Suloi. Taking on the best of what we've found. And there's a specific Suloi that takes care of defence and military. So will we see specific military ships for the Banu? Maybe. But clearly the Banu was originally, and I think we've still got kind of that half Morphe type aspect where the Banu merchantman still has a cargo pod or a hangar pad for the Banu Defender. And so I still think it's probably kind of more not quite the 890 jumps just built for defense, but actually it's kind of like a militia ship rather than a military ship.
Especially with that really big cannon. That's pretty...
Yeah. So I think you got to look at it not as a military ship, but as a militia ship that's doing both. And the question that I would have is, do the Banu, because they've now got Suloi who are military focused, will they have ships that are specifically, up-gun, just focused on the military, not worrying about the trade and other things? So, yeah, good question. I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit to be determined. What's the next question from the...
I'm scrolling from... Let's see. Next question was Vizeno Delucha.
Isn't it...
Sorry if I've butchered your name and totally screwed it.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, was Jared hinting at a PO replacement coming soon with the docking collars in the Orison orbit?
That was where he was talking about the docking collars just for the thing, and you corrected me. Yeah. I thought it was...
I got the impression he was talking about docking collars for Orison itself. And I think that rather than... Because Orison's a city, it's not the orbit. So if you're talking about the orbit of Orison, you're actually talking about the orbit of Crusader, and that's basically where Orison is. Orison is kind of held in the upper reaches of the atmosphere of Crusader. So were they saying they're adding docking collars to Orison and then adding them to everywhere, which would include Port Olisar? And if you'll remember the very early loading screen we had for Star Citizen with Orison, with the large ships docked to Orison. So the idea was always, from what I understand, that Orison had those docking collars. They're just not active and working, and probably need more work. So
mainly what from what you're saying is it's for the capital ships like Hammerheads and Reclaimers and blah blah blah, that type of thing. So they
890s and that's hard because I know on Orison the 890 has a hangar.
But they're probably temporary.
But that would include ships like the Caterpillar. Not the Caterpillar, the Kraken. The Idris, the Javelin. And I would certainly expect there to be docking collars and dockyards for those large ships because Orison used to be the UE naval dockyards. That's where they used to build their big ships, and when the UE sold it off, or the UEN sold it off, Crusader bought it because they said, hey, we can build our big ships here. So I don't know. We know that they've talked about doing a replacement for Olisar. We know they've said, hey, it'll be big, it'll be spectacular. They know it's a fan favourite. It does have a touch of soft spot in lore just because it is, the first place we called home for so long. So will it just be an upgraded Olisar? There are problems Olisar has, just the fact that we've got 4 totally separate HAB type areas. Could they just put a rail link that linked all 4 of them together, and which meant they could change for shops in all 4 HAB areas? Or does it mean they totally replace the station itself?
It'd be an easy one to do, wouldn't it? Like just update the... Because that one, everything just floats, you see, so it's a lot harder. They don't have to integrate it into terrain or anything like that.
Yeah, I would love to see them update Olisar rather than totally replace it. But I do know it doesn't fit the current model of the way they build bases because it was all hand built.
I don't think it'll
raise the question of how do we do it.
I don't think it'll be the last type of station we see in an orbit of a gas giant when 75% of the planets in the known universe are gas giants. Look at our own. We've got 3 in our own solar system. And tells you everything you need to know.
So I'd like to see them keep Olisar. I can understand the arguments for removing it because it's not procedurally generated. It probably takes up a lot of assets. Probably a bit like Tessa Bannister's station, the old ICC station. It probably took up a lot of assets as well, being old tech. So, yeah. Moving right along, because I don't think there's any more we can say on PO, a Port Olisar replacement.
Yep.
Goodall 18. Maybe all Goodall. Didn't work. I was trying to do some pun, but clearly I suck at puns. My kids would say, "Sir, you tell dad jokes." Do you expect the Crucible to have a price increase when it is next available?
Are you serious? Next available? Like when it's available, yes. When it's next, probably not. No.
Yeah, don't know about next available, but certainly when it is closer to release, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is still next to the Endeavour. It is the next cheapest ship. It's still at its original price of $350. And you need to go watch our ship scrutiny on the Crucible and just see how much it's got, because when we decided to do that, we went back and looked at all the videos and all the material we could on the Crucible.
We actually made a part 2 because we feel we stuffed up and didn't do it justice.
And we went, oh crap, we missed so much. So we actually made part 2.
Yeah.
But there's so much in it. We'd forgotten it had drones.
Yeah.
Just in that, we'd forgotten it had as many drones as the Vulcan. We forgot that it had that we actually discovered or remembered as we were watching it. We were blown away by the fact that the engines, not only did they go slide up and down the side, but there was actually access to the internals of the engines. So you could actually repair the engines of a Crucible from inside your ship.
Isn't there another ship that can slide the engines backwards? Is it the Liberator that moves the engines backwards and forwards?
I think it is.
The Raft. It was the Raft.
The Raft does it.
Yeah. So there's now 2 ships that can do it.
We knew the Crucible did it, but what blew us away was the fact that there was a hatch that you could actually get to access the engines from inside the ship to do repairs. And we were like, what?
Yeah.
the fact that you could actually detach, I think another one that really blew us away with the Crucible was the fact that you could detach the Scarab and run both separately. If the Scarab had resources, you could actually put it there as a garage, fixing something,
so
and send the body off to do something.
I'd imagine there's batteries in the Scarab, wouldn't you? Like a battery component?
I would imagine it's something similar to what they used to say the Caterpillar's cargo modules had. So they used to say the Caterpillar's cargo modules had their own life support and own battery systems. And
they had redundant systems, each one. Yeah. Similar,
so
probably.
I would expect something like that. But yeah, when we started looking at those things for the Crucible, there is no way the Crucible stays at 350.
No.
And we know it's going to grow because the ship that they've got in the hangar, even in the Holoview at the moment, is the old Hornet. And we know the Hornet grew, so...
And I'm a big fan of Salvage, but I think Repair is going to be so linked with those. Like, every time we recommend the Crucible, we recommend the Reclaimer and vice versa. So,
and it's always tying them in with even with the merchant gameplay. Someone says, I really want to be selling, salvaging stuff and selling it. And we said, well, if you're really salvaging it, you really want to be repairing it. And then it ties in, and if they say, I really want to be repairing stuff and selling it, we say, well, if you're doing that, you really want to be, or if they say, I want to buy stuff and upgrade it and overclock it, we say, well, if you're really looking at that, another actual linking is your repair. But yeah, those three, repair, salvage, and sales, we see a real close relationship.
Yeah, I think we went through and we talked about it in one video, like just those core 5 ships that we almost always recommend. And
and I know people think we're crazy for continually recommending them. Sometimes it's literally just because of price.
It's just so cheap. Like it sounds crazy to go, that is so cheap that it's $350 US, but it's easily going to double. And the Endeavor, I can't even imagine where that's going to go, because it's at least $890 jump. I think it's at least $1,000 in my opinion.
I think the BMM is around $890.
Yeah.
Pricing when it's finally done, when all's said and done.
So
and the Endeavour is going to kick its butt. The Endeavour is bigger and it has so many other options. Yeah, I can't see the Endeavour being less than that. And I think the Crucible's in the same boat. It's going to be, in terms of cost, they're going to charge it. It's going to go through the roof. So we'll always do that. And the top end ships of their line, so they're only going to get better. And the fact that they're among the last ships that they're building, which means, hopefully the teams don't have builder fatigue at that point. Just slap it together.
But it's going to,
so far what we've seen,
it's going to benefit from the
leave it, the better it is, isn't it?
Yeah, benefit from the them all the learning that they're doing and stuff like that. So
So they get better at making them. So yes, they might get builder fatigue, but they're getting so much better at making them, and they're learning from mistakes. Just look at the Connie versus the Mantis in terms of look. As examples, just look at you look at any of the early ships versus later ships, and you can see how much they've learnt in how to build ships and what to do, and so I can definitely see the Crucible going up in price, closer to release, and I think we were actually surprised it didn't go up last time.
Yeah, well,
in terms of answering that question, we were surprised it didn't go up. Same with the Endeavour. We were surprised they hadn't gone up. So,
and all you have to do is buy a CCU and sit on it. Something like, because here's the other scary thing. What if the Starfarer Gemini goes up in price when that releases for Refinery?
Yeah.
So it's
and
hard.
That's a possibility as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think our safer ships will end up moving to things that are not going to get extra gameplay. So I think after the cargo factor, it would probably be cargo ships. Because I don't think they're going to jump though when that comes out. I don't because it affects every ship as a form of cargo in some way or another. So I think your safer bet is to go off cargo ships, but we'll have to wait and see. There's no with the change they're making now, we're in uncharted territory because they're literally doing things that they told us about, but it's been 2 years to implement it. That makes it hard to follow.
Yeah, but I think the advice there, if you're looking at wanting to get, you're wondering, when's the Crucible going up? When have I got to get it? If you're worried about that, pick up a seat. I expect it'll next be available probably it may be available at Invictus because kind of military repair type usages at times. It'll certainly be available at the ICC, not the ICC, at the Aerospace Expo.
Was it last time? Because it's industrial, not
I
military.
honestly can't remember. Yeah,
yeah. I don't
so
think
I'd expect it at the Aerospace Expo.
I'm not sure if it was. I can't quite remember. But the other thing I was going to say real quick is you've always got the grey market. Like they might charge you an extra $5, but at least you've got it. So
yeah. But I would certainly be looking at, you know, pick up a CCU from a ship you've got that you intend to move it to, or pick up a CCU from a ship that's pretty safe, that's close to it, so $5, $10 CCU, and then use, you know, if you're happy to put more cash in, use War Bond CCUs to actually bring that price down, or if you just got the ship and you're wondering, have you got a good buy? Look, anyone who's got a Crucible or an Endeavour or a BMM at the original prices has an awesome buy, same as an Idris or any of those big ships that have gone up in price. So anyway, moving on. Viritan P. Oh, hang on, double check. Sorry, Stitchblades question. What type of ground vehicle would you want added to a game if you could add any? If you could add any. Sorry, I almost thought it went on to the next line, but there's someone else's. So, what ground vehicles would you add if you could add any ground vehicle to the game?
I think we'll eventually get them all really aggro, don't you? In some form or another.
Yeah.
Like take the ship so like medical vehicle, repair vehicles, salvage. Like I can see mining, like with the rock. I can see it all.
Yep. What would be your first preferred addition?
I'd have to think about that for a minute. I think something akin to like with them doing the roads and stuff. Like I could totally see like some kind of utility truck that's like a flatbed truck, so you can pick up like cyclones and you know, bring them back to get repaired, or you know, or maybe a refueling truck. I can see some kind of utility truck that is modular in.
Vehicle.
No. So it's like think of a truck like we have today, where they basically change the bed on the back to do multiple things.
Yep.
And yeah, so you can, you know, have it as a flatbed or as a refuel truck, or you know, or you put a tractor beam on it and it can drag things behind it. Like I can just think like a multi-use utility truck, like. But whether they do one, or they do every single individual one, or they do one and make it like the Cyclone, and there's all these different variants, we'll have to wait and see.
I wouldn't. Unlike you, I'd like to see everything, but I wouldn't mind seeing the big Earth Mover type vehicles. Moving around mining sites or open pits on Crusader or other planets. A bit like you've got those great big flying platforms flying around Crusader, just ambling along. And I wouldn't mind seeing things like that. I wouldn't mind seeing things like the hangar refueler vehicles that we see but we can't use or interact with. You know, so things like that I'd like to see. But yeah, I want to see everything. So, Viritan P. question. Thinking on salvage, do you feel the Reclaimer will strip coating off ships or just eat them?
Both.
A hole for speed and knock them down, but at a loss of material. Yeah, probably both.
Yeah, it's both.
I think there'll be an emphasis more on the just munching them up. But as we've said previously, and as CIG have said previously, if you just go up to a ship and munch it, you are going to go boom or wreck your ship.
So the real big difference you can look between the Vulture and the Reclaimer already is that the Vulture's got to go out and use blasting charges to make it into eatable chunks. There's literally tractor beams and lasers on the Reclaimer, so it actually physically chops the ship up, and then you can actually see there's a tunnel with teeth that the tractor beams will feed the pieces into, that then goes into that grinding room that you see, and so it gets all ground up, and at the very back it looks like there's like almost like sorting bins, and you can see them down the side. Like when I get into I can go walk. How about we walk through it and we'll have a look? And
the thing with the Claw and Reclaimer is not for crunching up ships. It's basically for just. I get the impression, it can grip them and crunch them, but it's really so you can help maneuver the ship into position to be chopped up into bits and pieces and dragged to the moor so it can...
The claw's kind of just to hold it stable so you can cut it. Everything, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the impression I've got. So, but do I expect to see it doing both? I expect it really to focus on the munching. But as CIG have said, you want to take the fuel off, you want to take the ammo off, you want to take the components out. You want to take the missiles off.
Do you remember back in the day where it had all that bespoke cargo space? Because it's now it's like a cargo storage. So this thing will help. Like it's got to physically hold the weight of other ships, and at the other like in the back room, you're meant to be able to fit an entire Constellation in the back of the ship.
Yeah. So. I think it does both, and I think, but I think it'll have be slated more towards the crunching, whereas ships like the Vulture, they can do some of that crunching stuff or wearing down the other stuff, but I think they focus more on the hull stripping more than the other stuff. So you'll get that balance of ships, but I still think the Reclaimer is the current pinnacle of salvage vehicles. Ryan King, question: does the Reclaimer deserve a medical bay?
Probably not. I don't think it needs one.
It certainly has a medical cabinet. If it had a medical bay, I would say Cutlass Red type medical bay.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think most ships will have like your med pens and shit like that, and that's your basics. That's all you're getting.
Yeah. And if it does have a medical bay, it should only, I'd make it a tier 1 so you can actually do repairs of broken bones and rather than just jabbing someone with medical stuff. And I understand people's concern about that. It's a bit like, will the Starfarer with its refinery have a medical bay? Because, industrial accidents do happen. But then you've also got, if everyone has a medical bay and they're all tier 2 or tier 3 or whatever it is, then why do you need a medical ship? And so it is that dichotomy between what we expect to see in real life versus what makes sense in a game to make it fun, so you've got multiple different types of careers, rather than just everything on one ship. And I know it's a multi-cruise ship, and it's, you'd expect to have, okay, here's our doctor, here's our captain, here's our armory expert. But you and I both know that that's not always going to be the case, and so you do want to have that variation in terms of ships and crews and game style. So,
all right, I'm going to go grab a drink real quick. Why this takes 10 minutes to get the atmosphere? I'm joking, obviously, but this takes so long. This needs to be fixed.
As I said, I think the Crux Cup, the Reclaimer did one lap in about 30 minutes, so it did 2 laps at best. So
yeah, I get this.
It's a slow old beast.
Yeah, I get a sneaking suspicion it ain't coming down to planet often. Put it that way. Like it's only coming down if there's like a really big ship that something else can't take care of, because it's got to be worth the time.
The time and money. Yeah, time is money. So
it literally just hit the Telsa spaceport sign. Like that's how long it's taken. Like it like if I go back, like what's our altitude? Like look at it. 35 meters a second. Like it's pitiful.
Yeah. I think during the Crux Cup it got up to a max speed of 80.
I've got it faster than that, but yeah.
Around Orison, where we're trying to stay afloat and not so. But they got to a max speed of about 80, whereas everything else was doing, 3 times that speed at least, I think. Anyway, next question. We have Ryan King, not Ryan King, that was Ryan King's question about Reclaimer. JM, question. Are we going to have a ship that only refines ore? I mean, dedicated to this role. And what size do you think this ship will be?
Only refine ore. Well, they've said that the refinery has like reactor core, and the Starfarer's one has 3. So I think you can imagine the next step down would have 2, and the next steps down would have 1. I think you might even get a ship that's a dedicated fuel transporter, like a starter, like it's like a liquid transporter, akin to the Starfarer, but it only does liquid. For one that only does ore? No, I just don't. I just don't see the need for it. Because wouldn't it just be you pick your reactor, and if you're the refinery ship only has one reactor because it's the starting one, can't you then just make it a dedicated ore one or a dedicated fuel one? You choose essentially.
And I don't think we'll just see a refinery, because the way, even when Dan Truffin, when he was talking about the Starfarer, he said the Starfarer will not refine as good as a station will. But so that's your trade-off. You could fly your stuff to your refinery and do the refinery stuff there. But Starfarer will do it at the site, which means you'll be able to take more of that high-quality stuff. So the trade-off is speed versus being able to carry a lot more cargo that is a lot more valuable than just the raw ore.
So while
if I've just got a ship as a refinery, you want somewhere to store that stuff. So it's going to be a refinery cargo bay, and at the end of the day, that's effectively a Starfarer, isn't it?
So I want to talk about this for a second, just while we're here flying. See these kind of 6 little things that come off it? It says 3 either side. I think these are some form of cargo transference.
Yeah.
Where they're like
scuttlebaggy type.
Yeah, exactly. They almost look like they got clips as well. Like you see at the top there, almost looks like they got clips and they can be taken off. So I almost envisioned like an MPUV or something picking them up and taking them off. You can also, if you look at the back here, you can clearly see that there's like some kind of door at the bottom. There's a door at the back. So the other option is the reclaimer just flies over, opens the door, and just all the shit falls out. So I again, it's only a speculation until we know what it's going to do. There's just no way to fucking tell. So maybe it does have model options. Maybe they put in model options so they could choose. So yeah.
Yep, it does look like a bug though, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, so moving right along. Sorry. MJ Dolan says, when do you think they will get around to making the Caterpillar cargo door lower to the ground? Schmirk. When they fix elevators in general? When they decide that they actually want to do that? If they decide they want the Caterpillar to actually have that functionality in the end, or whether they've changed their minds and said no. I don't know. What about you, Execute?
Tractor beams is where I think. So I think like you got tractor beams for loading and unloading. So after the cargo refactor.
So that's having the cargo door lower down to the ground so you can put vehicles on it.
Yeah, and when it's going to need to do it, and I think also when they go back to do the Caterpillar, they'll probably do things like the cargo, the command module and stuff like that. So whenever it next gets its pass, I
do know that we've still got those desync issues with elevators. You put vehicles on, sometimes the vehicles judders through and then falls through because there's that desync. And I think once they sort that, they'll actually look at getting other ships would have weird cargo bays or weird doors, because they're not just elevators. It's a door that transitions down and then becomes an elevator. So those doors in the Caterpillar are I think a lot more complex than say just the lift on a Connie or a lift on a 400 or even a reclaimer. So
it's so goddamn slow. Oh god. Like how long have I been flying for and I can still see the freaking building? Oh, it's crazy.
Turn off your engines and fall. The problem you may have then is
there is a reason why this ship is.
I can't get the engines to power up quick enough.
So I'll just show you the name of it here, of what I called it, and this is why I called it that. Because when it fell back in the day, it would fall just like one of those. So that's why I called it that. It's not the best name, but it was significant to me, Reclaimer Meteor, because it just felt like a rock in the day.
Yep.
We're up to 99 speed though now, so we actually are increasing in speed.
Yeah. So Shimpastar says, when Pyro comes out, will COG have NPC refuellers
Yeah, you'd have to imagine. Oh,
No.
shit, that's a good question.
But they've actually, well, depending on how soon it comes out, they've certainly said that when, and they answered this in, I think they answered this in terms of the Quanta type effort. Will we have NPC refuelers initially, or will we have missions to do NPC stuff? And the answer was no. Initially, refueling is just player based. Was my understanding from one of the last ISCs they did. So I'm expecting initially no, but do they intend to have that? Yes. And yes, at the most there aren't enough human players. Are you a closet PvP, Shempasta? That's often the argument you hear from PvP players. You must PvP with me because there aren't enough people.
That's at the moment, but that'll all change given time.
Yeah, I think so initially no. I think it's initially just players. Certainly that's what I've heard. But I imagine down the track there will be NPC refuelers or missions to get or missions to go refuel an NPC as well. So not yet, but soon. Duff Poolin. Is there any news in regards to agent smithing or similar?
Last we heard is it's still a thing. Yeah.
Last we heard it's still a thing. My take on it is originally CIG was just saying, hey, and any NPC that's on your ship would do it. The last I kind of heard was that it would be linked with extra accounts. Does that mean go out and buy an extra account now? No, I think you could, but I don't think it's necessarily the best value for money at present. You could easily pick those up later, even if they are. And I fully expect that when they do bring in agent smithing or anything linked to extra accounts, that they will actually sell, character slots by themselves or things that will enable you to tie that in. But the closest we know is it's still a thing. It's one of the methods they wanted to look at to enable friends who are on opposite sides of the galaxy to be able to temporarily game together. But in the current format, the way we've discussed it, there's so many issues to work out. Are they just, if that character dies, does it kill your NPC? Does it mean, does it reduce your NPC crew? Does the person who comes in die? Do they have to go regen? Do they lose anything? So there's a whole host of issues that have to come in and have to be sorted out. And I think at the moment, it's so vague. It makes it so far off. But do I think it's still a thing? Yes. The last we heard, it's still a thing. So that's all we can really say. Would you agree with that?
Yep, 100%.
So Shempasta goes on. He says, how do you see Quantanium mining change when the cargo factor comes in, since it is time sensitive?
Initially I don't think it will. Maybe later they'll bring in special containers so you can extend it and stuff like that. And maybe you need special power requirements, so like the smaller ships can't use them. Maybe you've got to transfer it from a prospector into a ship that's actually got the cargo containers, because there is no cargo containers on the prospector. Things like that.
The current way you do it is you get to a station and you store your ship, and once you store your ship, it stops the timer. And then you're free to go to go to a mining place and put it in as well. But yeah, I expect we'll see some form of I'd like to see some form of stasis type container which you could put it in. It slows down the time of a container, or maybe and maybe it's the way we've got those quantum sensitive missions where you can't go to quantum. Maybe it's linked to that. So down the track, who knows? But yeah, so Quantanium, don't know. I don't think they will, but they may have containers or another ship that can do that down the track. Veritan P, question: do you think they might make a Banu ship based on the original BMM concept, where the engine was at the pointy end and the wide bit was at the front?
I guess they could, but like the thing that is really clear in the lore, and Algared would probably know more of this than me, is they tend to be the best of. Like, they don't have many ships because their ships are just so refined. They are the best at what they do, you know. Yeah. And so that's why there's only a defender and I think no, this didn't work last time I was here.
At the moment.
Yeah. So, long story short, I just don't think we're going to get many Banu ships. I think if anything, I'd see another solo ship coming from them that, you know, like a small store. But I don't know. You tell me, Algared. You're more up on the lore than I am. What do you like? A slavery ship? Like they're all trading. Like what would you see?
It's hard to say. Like, I think if we were looking at, say, 2014, I'd have probably agreed with the fact that we've now got one Sula that specifically builds military ships, but takes care of their defense ships and specifically builds the defender, and that's changed. That changes things. The fact that you've got Suloi that specifically do the, you know, so the family groups of a Suloi specifically do different tasks, and so that changes certainly that 12-inch brushstroke we used to have of the Banu.
So notice the names of these things here too. So you got salvage hold, cargo hold, salvage processing, and salvage balcony. So that they're very telling. So this is where the salvage will be processed, and the salvage hold is obviously it's the level underneath, and it's all storage bays.
And you notice that the salvage processing has those 6 kind of 3 big containers on each side.
Yeah,
which I think like goes to those.
See these doors? There's like 3 doors. So I think they're giant. I think they're. I've had a look at them, and they seem directly lined up with those big 3 things.
Yep.
So and you look, giant arrow where I think the cargo's thrown down. Salvage lift, like.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that assessment there to Execute. It's to me it just looks.
So that looks like a lift that comes up and down.
Yep, and then I think you've got your cargo bay at the back, and that looks like it's got the big doors that open.
I'm going to take the elevator down because the last time I jumped down, the elevator I couldn't call the elevator down there, and it wouldn't let me get out.
Gotta have the lift music while you're on a lift like that.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is with the lifts on the floors, but like this literally say deck latching. So like I'm like, do they put a ship down here and pull it apart? Do they, you know, do these open and cargo gets thrown in there? Like there's just so like, I think a lot of this is placeholder. Like quite honestly.
And then you look at that big angled door at the back there, and that looks like it's a big door that opens up.
Yeah, so it's kind of tough to figure out what's going on. And only time will tell.
So yes, to go back to your question, Rotan, I'd like to see more, but I don't know. Depends on. I think we'll eventually see some more ships from them, just like we'll see more ships from the
Zion.
The Zion. But I think at the moment, I would have to say that the race that is most urgent for them to get everything done is the Vanduul, because it's linked to Squadron.
I'd like to see some more Tavaran as well, and I'd like to see
more Tavaran.
New Tavaran as well that come out of those people that are kind of pushing. Yeah.
Yep.
I still think this room also will eventually house the cutter, like with things like this crane and stuff. And Algared and I've talked a lot. Well, you correct me if you think what I'm about to say here, Algared, but you and I both believe it'll be some form of Titan suit. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, give it. I take that view, and I know we've talked about it in the past, but just the fact that the Reclaimer has such a vibe of the old Nostromo from was it Nostromo in Aliens 1?
Yep.
So just that it's got that Nostromo vibe, the cutter suit to me is that industry cargo loader that Ripley uses.
The power loader. But we also loader. That when we were going back through the we want to do a video on it, but I don't know if there's enough of an episode there, because it's like you kind of talk about them and then they're like, and the episode's over. But when we were doing the Caterpillar videos for Ship Scrutiny, they literally talk about exosuits. They don't call them Titan suits. They call them exosuits, and like one will be for mining, one will be for medical.
Yeah, and it's such a short. It's not. It doesn't even make the 5-minute mark. So to be like.
But it's just cool to know that Titan suits are not just combat, essentially.
Yeah, and it's nice to it is nice to see that we've heard about Titan suits for so long, and yet the fact that they've actually talked about and thought about what they'd be. It is a slow process, and that's the nature of game development. You kind of put your plans out there, and as time goes on, they either develop, or they get paused for a while, or they go backwards. But will we see them? Yes. When will we see them? I don't know, but we will see them. That's about as far as I'll go. And about as far as we probably can go with that. So Veritum P would answer your question. Dev Trooper has another question on the BMM. He says, is the BMM a military... that was the one we answered before. So I think it's a militia ship, not necessarily a military ship. So it's a kind of an amalgamation of both. Will we see it more military with the particular Banu Zulu working on ships now? Who knows? Sean Solo question. Speaking of Crusader making big ships, and what are they? Surely the Hercules isn't what they would call big. We don't know. So the biggest ships they used to talk about was the Hercules was one. The Genesis is another. They're the biggest ships we know that they do. But if you look at the just flying around Crusader, Orison, you've got their great big cargo barges, and they dwarf the Hercules. And they're, so I'd imagine they do those types of things. What would you like to see from?
I want to see the Jupiter.
I would like to see the Jupiter. I would like to see their Jupiter carrier. So he did build a carrier. I had briefly forgotten about the Jupiter. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had talked about Crusader had built a Jupiter because back in the day they had problems with delivery, and so they built their own. One of their guys would say, if we had our own fleet ships, we'd solve this problem. So they said, oh, we'll build it. My frustration with Crusaders, I don't see them doing big bombers as being a primary thing. They might do one under contract. I don't see them being a company that would do massive fighter ship killers. But that's a
unfortunately that is like them needing money, and the marketing team has said this will make us money. And I don't like it when the marketing team influences gameplay. I'm never a fan of it. It always ends badly.
My frustration with that is the things like the Ares, regardless of what it was, regardless of the company that made it, whether it was Drake, even if Origin had done it, that would have made money. It would have been it would have been as out of style for Origin as I think it is for Crusader, but it would have made money. To me, it just no brainer. Sean Solo does a follow-up question. He says, will we get larger ships, maybe capital-sized, from Crusader? Ties back to our desire for the Jupiter with the carrier.
I think you'll get a capital from everyone eventually, at least one. Yep. At least one.
And I tend to think it makes that type of thing, because of Crusaders, because Crusader bought the planet with the old shipyards that were where the UE used to build their capital ships. I would have liked to have seen Crusader have more of an emphasis on carrier ships rather than Ares fighters and things like that. But we all know that small ships sell, so we bring them in first. So Sandgroper, lovely to see you this morning, Sandgroper. We finally got to your question. And here you asked, we had one big jump in the price of the Starfarer. Do you think we will get another one when fueling comes live? Goes live?
We did talk about that a little bit briefly earlier, didn't we? So it's always possible, man. Never rule anything out.
I think I'd agree with what you said earlier. I don't know if we'd get one when refueling. With refueling, and if we do, I think it'd be like $10. But I think where we'll get a price jump with the Starfarer is likely when refining gets added.
Yeah.
And so when refining on the Starfarer comes, that's when we'll see either a rework of part of the Starfarer, and certainly a price jump. And certainly when they get around to redoing the Starfarer, because it's a rabbit warren and they hate it and everyone hates it, I think that's when we'll see either a new model that gets a massive price jump or, yeah. TJ Frost. Will the 890 jump burn less fuel when 3.7 comes out?
What ship was that, sorry?
The 890 jump.
Who cares? No.
Yeah, that's right, Execute. You don't care. I would like to think that every ship will burn fuel at particular rates. I think you want every ship to be able to have enough fuel for gameplay for at least an hour. You know, and or have the facilities nearby where they can quickly refuel. It is a balancing issue, and so we're going until the game is actually launched, and even after it's launched, when they do patches, we're going to see things get shifted up and down.
Yeah.
So
the question you really want to ask is the 890 jump getting more explodey in 3.17? That's the question you want to ask. Not whether if it, you know.
That's Execute working on here is I want to blow up all 890 jumps I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to see with refuel or fuel, I want to see the gameplay that everyone can have in regardless of the ship be at least usable. If you run out in 5 minutes, or you can't take the fuel is so limited that you can't fly down to a planet and land in a hangar bay, or land and be able to take off again, I think there's a problem. And so it is linked to balance, and it will get sorted out. And so
yep,
it might get screwed up in 3.17, and then it might get brought back in 3.17.1 or 2, and it's the same for every ship. So
yeah, it's going to be a ping pong game with every ship.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if it's a concern, if you've got an 890 jump and you're concerned, don't worry about it. Don't stress it. Same with every ship. Same with fighters. You know, everything's going to get balanced. The concern with fighters might be that down the track they actually do significantly less damage than they do to big ships at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And big ships, your big guns, will find it significantly more difficult to target those fighters because there'll be that balance. And Riddick came back with the answer on his Drake Mule, and it's a leak render.
That's probably fake as a Drake Mule. Yeah. Mule, not
a Drake Mule. You did say mole earlier on, but
did he link it?
He didn't link it. So if you can link that into the chat, that would be awesome.
We'll have a look.
And we'll have a look.
Oh wait, it's probably on SC Links. I can probably just get it off Hader.
It probably is on SC Links. You'd be better to look at that because I'd never go to SC Links. So there you go. Going back, good all. Is it good all 18? Good all 18, not good all 118. Good all 18 says back to the Crucible. You expect alternate Scarab modules already sold on it. We'll probably get it if the grey market soonish, just in case. Originally, if you look at the Jump Point articles on the Crucible, they certainly did talk about different Crucibles. They did.
Algared, real quick. I'm just looking. They actually mention a salvage canister here. So I was telling you about the multi-tool with 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that goes back to our discussion earlier on the salvage they showed in the video. But with the Crucible, they did talk about the Crucible being a tow truck and having additional tractor beams or more powerful tractor beams in place of a Scarab. They did talk about the Scarab being almost a scaffold for building on ships, and on capital ships. Will they have different modules in terms of repair? I don't think they really needed them the way they talked about it. So if you're doing repair on a large ship that didn't fit in the Scarab, you could either open the Scarab up and have a ship kind of parked on top of that Scarab, or you could take the Scarab out and it kind of would dock in between the engines, and the arms on the engine the repair arms on the engine arms would do the work. Or you'd fly up the side of the ship and be doing your work. The very first description I recall of the Crucible was that the Crucible would actually build scaffolds around ships, and so you'd end up with multiple Crucibles going up to an Idris or a Javelin and linking their scaffolds together to do a major repair. I don't think they've actually talked about different Scarab modules per se.
No.
They did talk about different Crucible modules. But I think the Scarab module was so versatile in the fact that it was an enclosed space, but could be opened up. And so you didn't need a different one for different types of ships. It was just small fighters, you can actually close it in, so you don't need to be in Atmo or in a suit. Larger ships would come in and you'd work in an environment suit, but still have gravity. And then if you have the Scarab away and it was just docked in between, being held by the tractor beams, you're working around the ship, you'd be using EVAs. So, yeah, I don't think so. And I'm gathering that's your thought as well, Execute.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry?
In terms of the Scarab modules, you kind of think there's just the one, right?
At the moment, they didn't really go in. They talked about having different layouts within the Scarab, so I think it might be more like just one Scarab, but it's customizable what you can put in there. That would be from what I've seen, but yeah, too early to call now. Like everything's, look how much the Banu Merchantman changed. The Crucible's almost in the same ballpark.
And it's not even been concepted yet, so
exactly.
White boxed or anything yet. So TJ Frost says, "Stop spamming question, guys. Wait until my question is answered." I think we answered your question.
Oh shit!
TJ.
Get the fuck out of here!
Someone doesn't like you.
What the fuck? What did I do?
Claimer in atmosphere being shot at.
What the fuck? Just came to say hello. What the
Hey,
fuck?
I like you. At least it was only a base, wasn't a ship trying to shoot you.
Look at the front shield. They almost ruined the front shield. That's a lot of damage. Like hard to take down reclaimer shields. They're pretty tanky. Jesus.
Yeah. I hope we've answered your question now, TJ. If not, put it again because it means I've missed it. And I'll move right on. Pickle skin. What? So were you pickled in? I wonder whether your skin was pickled in vinegar or so Pickle Skin asks, when was the last time you changed your bed sheets? Well, in game I can't.
Oh, he's talking. Oh, he's probably talking shit. Never changed them in the reclaimer, not once. Yeah.
So can't do it in game. Sorry. Paul Russo, question: do you think CIG will implement a guilt by association system that has been rumored in the past? Well, that's rep system, I think. So you'll have with the rep system, you'll have groups that will not talk to you if your rep is too high. They've actually talked about making it that if you're with this group, you can't really be with this group because they hate each other. So yeah, if you've got good faction with group A, group B might not like you, or may even attack you. So depending on your rep level. So that's my understanding. So I think that is well and truly planned. Your thoughts, Execute?
I missed that because I was trying to land. Sorry.
Do you think CIG will implement a guilt by association system as has been rumoured in the past?
So the thing they talked about was death of a spaceman, is if you die and you pass it on to your heir, they will gain, maybe like 75% of the reputation you had. So yes, but not 100%.
Yeah, and I think that, and like I said the faction system, the rep system will kind of be that, where different factions will like or dislike you based on what your faction level is. So, fried industry, or the fried industry, must be a competitor to me. So we're not answering that question. Sorry.
Kentucky Fried
But we
Tavarin.
can't go against Kentucky Fried Tavarin. So anyway, but Fried Industry has a question. He says, or they say, and do you think the medium salvage ship could be a surprise concept drop? Execute?
Say that again. What was the concept?
Do you
drop?
think a medium salvage ship could be a surprise concept drop?
Being a new feature, that's hard to tell because they're a bit more freed up now. So yes, it is possible as a concept, more likely possible, straight to flyable.
Probably not.
Not as likely, but like it is still possible. Like anything's possible. It's what they decide to do, and the thing is, they just don't share enough information, so we don't know.
And sometimes it's not even what they decide to do. It's literally based on what, you know, if someone's got the time to work on that, or they're, you know, where this team is finished what they can do. They need something new to work on. We've got this ship or these things down the pipeline. Let's explore that, or let's explore something new. So, yeah, good question, but not sure we've got an answer. We've got 2 more questions. So if you want us to staying around, you've got to ask more questions. Shempasa asked a question: is there a list of ships that have fuel scoops? At the moment, it's everything. Down the track, my understanding is that any ship that is carrier based, like fighters, won't.
Isn't it just like
that? I'm not sure.
Isn't there like 3? So there's the DER, there's the 100 series, and I think the 890 jump, and that's it. You correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but they're the 3 that I remember.
Certainly in terms of fuel scoops, there is in terms of the small ships, there's the 100i, and I think the 300i. In terms of medium ships, I think most have some form of fuel scoop, but I have no idea exactly what. I'm not sure if I'm not. I'd have to go back and really look. But most small ships, the only non-origin ship that I recall has a fuel scoop, or used to have fuel scoops, was the Mustang. And it had, and one of the things that made the Amiga Mustang so much better the Mustang Amiga so much better was the fact that it had 2. It had one on top and one below, which made it, back in the day when you used to use your scoops to scoop up your boost fuel, it meant that you could keep the Mustang Amiga in boost indefinitely, which made it the fastest racing ship around the old Arena Commander racetracks, just because you could boost all the time. So I'd have to check that, but certainly for most fighters, won't. And I'm not sure what medium or large ships will have that. We've got 2 more questions now because we've had a new one added in. Paul Russo, as our second last question currently, says, who do you think will manufacture a large mining ship, and what do you think their crew requirements would be?
We did talk about this a while ago, didn't we?
We have talked about manufacturers we think would be.
Yeah, so we're pretty convinced the last one's some form of land miner, and one of the ones we came back to was the Cygnus miner, but the Cygnus miner is not solo, it's not multiplayer, so the only way that would work is if there was some kind of thing that carried a few of them, but that would technically work. Right, so when you look along those lines, you look at industry, you look at ones that we've already got that are in that vein, so it kind of rules out MISC and it kind of rules out RSI, and you've already got Argo. So you go down that industry line, Drake's in there.
I always see Drake as more a salvage rather than mining, because if you look at where they are, they do, they are in salvage yards and they do that type of stuff, so...
Yeah, and I kind of... It's the same thing with the Vulture, though. Like, I don't quite understand how the Vulture links up with the other ships. The only ship I can see it linking up is the Caterpillar and its Chop Shop.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of the same thing with Drake, but the one that I think it is probably most likely to be is actually Consolidated Outland. And that's mainly because they are like prospectors and out on the fringes and stuff like that. And you know, the things like the nomad, like the way things are named, they're about. When I say prospectors, I mean the people of prospectors. Like they go out and they're the people on the edge of they're exploring that new frontier. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Algared?
Well, I always got the impression that's what Drake ships were. They were the frontier ships. The ships that were quick and easy to maintain.
Oh, I mean Consolidated Outland.
Consolidated Outland. Well, I still think Drake would be other ships that are out on that frontier. I think Consolidated Outland are kind of in that ballpark, but they're not really. It's a hard one. It's like saying Elon Musk is doing stuff that everyone can afford out on the frontier. It doesn't ring true. But who would it be? If you don't want it to be Drake or Argo, Consolidated probably is the one. And you look at what ships Consolidated have, and they've got not much. They've got the Mustang. They've got the Pioneer.
I'll check one more at you, Algared. Alien.
Yeah, it could be Alien. Could be well, we do have. If we're talking alien landminer, we've got the Driller.
Yeah, so you basically got Xenu, Grey Cat, and Alien. I think that's kind of where it's going to go. Yes, they could technically bring in another manufacturer they've used already, but
I could see it being if it's a landminer, I could see it being Grey Cat.
Yeah,
because their little PTV vehicles and stuff were originally made for the idea of.
I would expect the rock to be a part of that ship. So they like there's some kind of bay for the rock, and the rocks come out and they do all the surface stuff, and then while they're in the area, but this thing goes down underneath. And a lot of the time, like in real life, I wish Tecton was here. He could probably tell me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of the time, there is surface stuff that points to there being something under the ground. So yeah.
Yeah, well, the way the geology is formed certainly helps to work with that. Certainly, I know that's what went with the idea of often gold strikes being found. People would follow the riverbeds. They'd look at where the mountains were. They'd look at the rock formations. They'd go down, and then that would help them find their if I found the gold in the riverbed and follow it back to it. And so yeah. So definitely geology certainly does help with that. Okay, we've got another question. Max has a question. Thoughts on drones and their uses in the Apollo, Vulcan, and Carrack, and don't forget the Crucible. And question: if you're still in game, Execute does? No, you're not.
Not in game.
My question was going to be: did you know or recall if the Reclaimer has drones?
It does. That very top. You know how you go up the elevator?
Yep.
That first room, you can kind of go around that central room. That's the drone room.
Yep.
And the hatch on top. Yep.
Yep. I thought there was one there too. So you've got drones in that, and I think the Orion may have had them as well, but don't quote me on that. I have certainly asked about. I did used to think the Orion had a snub ship, which was what did I call it? The cutter, not the cutter, but a tender, and I did ask, and I had heard that Chris Roberts said no, but there was thought that there was some form, but from memory there was some form of drone with it. So. That is.
So a mining drone of some description.
Some form of mining drone.
Or tractor beam drone or something, but yeah.
So something like that to aid with the mining. So
and drones from what we've learned from the Vulcan Q&A and stuff are basically a version of whatever the hand version is, but you can switch between drones and do multiple ones at the same time, so they can be like an automated process.
And you're also getting the drones in the Nautilus, because the Nautilus has drones to be able to pick up and pick up and reclaim mines. So So there's a vast variety.
Not lay. It doesn't lay because they're just deployed.
Yeah,
but
it
can pick them up though. 100%.
Pick them up and repair and do that stuff. So.
And maintain, I think they said as well. Maintain. So that covers your repair.
So a whole series of different types of drones. The question is, would all ships would you be able to equip a mining drone or a mine laying drone or a mine retrieval drone to an Apollo? Would you be able to equip one to a Vulcan or a Carrack? And then if the answer is yes, it's can that ship actually store that material safely? So could an Apollo store a retrieve mine safely?
Yeah, so probably a drone would take up cargo space. You'd need to have some kind of blade to run it, etc., etc., etc. So there'll be certain ships that just can't do drones at all, but there'd be ones that could do it, but that would severely hamper their other functions.
Yeah, impact on their functionality and even whether they can do that job really well. But Carrack, can the Carrack have, what types of drones does a Carrack have? Would a Carrack benefit from having an Apollo type drone or a Shepherd drone? So, I would say no, because there's no real way to get that drone into the med bay. Whereas the Apollo Shepherd drone is specifically built to be able to get those patients straight into that med bay. So different drones for different ships, but...
ISDHB asks question, topic on the fuel for the 890 jump and others cost lots to refuel. What would be the horrendous cost to be refuel the hull series? What would
it depends. Hull A? Nothing.
Vapors.
It's going to be cheap. C, probably getting closer to the bigger ships. The Hull D and the Hull E,
So that's another question that I think he hasn't kind of hinted in there, but that I'll ask is he's talking about weight.
Yep.
So if you got a Hull E and it's like totally full, it's obviously going to burn more atmosphere, like blah blah blah. Wow, yeah.
Yep.
So I think that really will be a thing. Like, will an empty Banu merchantman take less fuel than a full one? Yeah, 100%. And we do know at the moment, all ships' cargo is set to their maximum. That's why the Starfarer flies like a bathtub. So
So that's why the Reclaimer flies like a bathtub. It is fully laden. So the cargo costs we're getting at the moment, or the fuel costs we're getting at the moment, are for fully laden ships. So I would expect if you're not unladen, it'll become less. But the horrendous costs for a Hull E, Hull D, God help us all.
So that changes a bit, doesn't it? Like, just think of that Reclaimer, how it took me so long to get up. It'd be coming down, empty out, and then it's easy for me to get off, so to speak. Get off the planet. So,
So moving right along, Jfish Media says, do we see a medium salvage ship between the Vulture and the Reclaimer?
I go back to what Dyson said before the Vulture ever come out. Do you remember the trash compactor?
Yeah. When we were talking about it, we actually came up with we thought we had this kind of crash compactor type one, didn't we?
Dyson came up with it, and it was very clever. And quite honestly, it's in the Vulture now. There is a little mini trash compactor behind the cockpit. You can actually see it. It was in one of the ISCs. So I just think it was really cool that he came up with that before. But I love the idea. He had it as a Drake ship, and he said it would be the medium one, and basically it compacts the trash. So basically you can have more of it. So that was the step up from a Vulture. Quite honestly,
I think my idea for that one was based on a Connie with this very similar type of process, and I can't remember what yours was, but we did talk about where we thought the medium or the large ship would be.
What I'll do is I'll go through the steps. So if you actually look at a Vulture cannot break up a ship, but it can strip it and it can crush it, right? But it can't process it, right? So the top end of the line is the Reclaimer, where it can process it. So the next ship down wouldn't be able to process, but it can cut it up, it can strip it, and it can crush it,
impact it,
right? Yeah. And so the next ship down from that would be a ship that you just take one of those away. So maybe it's like the Vulture, where the Vulture, that's a tough one. I have to think about that. So it might be akin to the Mole, where it really is just a multi-headed Vulture, and maybe there's more lasers so it can cut it up quicker. Maybe there's you just got to play that through.
Or because you've got more lasers, you can focus on something that's harder for the one laser to do. So,
well, look at what one person's got to do in the vulture. They've got to get out. They've got to blow it up. They've then got to then get the vulture to pull through the stripper, and then once it's gone through the stripper, it's got to go through the crusher, and then it goes inside and it's got to be processed. It's like 4 steps. So if you actually broke that up, even just that, but 4 stations, could be the medium one, and then the large one is and by the way, you can, it's now got a laser on it, so you can cut it up. So someone's got to get out, break it up for the medium one, but then on the large one, no one's going to get out because it's got a laser on it. So there's so many different ways you could do. There's the reclaimer. So, but they might even turn around and only make 3 ships. But they have said they want to try and get 1 for every size class, and the reclaimer is capital because there's a bespoke power plant, which makes it capital. Because it's anything that's bespoke is capital. So it's a tough one because again, you just don't know. You can if you go through and look at the steps of what things do, you can generally figure out roughly what that ship's going to be, as in its size category.
Going back, we've got another question from Sangropa, and Sangropa, Western Australia, 6,000. I'm assuming that's what the WA is. Says, and especially with a name like Sangropa. For those who don't know, a Sangropa is a slang Australian term for a West Australian.
Oh, is it?
So, can we make cocktails out of boost fuel? Or is that a once-in-a-lifetime cocktail? Well, I've always said that I sell Jav Ale. Because I've got, I use my javelins to, and the old reactors cores to produce a Jav Ale.
Here you go.
It gives you a nice glow.
Here you go, Sangropa. Have a death wish. There we go. All right. What's the next one?
The next, good question. Don't know. Rocket fuel is not made of rocket fuel. Just remember that. ISDHB says, new player help. What would Inforunners recommend to help those get into the game and get in it and be up and running properly? This can be a daunting task for some people, e.g. me.
I'd almost say to get up to speed, just find some people to play with. You can jump on our Discord and find people. I do know Space Tomato will take new people and show them the ropes. So reach out to Space Tomato, just say we sent you. He'll definitely talk to you. He's on our Discord. You can right click his name and send him a message. He's very approachable, and he'll help you out. Or find an org. You don't need anything really past the starter package. You really don't. If you want to go further, this has always been our recommendation. I don't think it's changed in like 6 years. Starter pack. If you want to go, the best starter ship is the Avenger Titan. Then I'd probably go to the Cutlass, and then. But I think we both agree, Algared, you can go to a big ship, but you don't need multiple ships anymore. No. You really just want one ship you really like, whether that's the starter or whatever one you want. Do you. I think Algared and I would both say probably the best all-round ship in the game at the moment is still the Cutlass because of its functionality and what it does. You do you, but you don't need any of that. That's the thing. It's how much you want to put into it, and we can't. We can sit down one-on-one with you and talk to you about it, but at the end of the day, it's what you want to get out of the game, and you can do that with the starter pack.
Yeah, and if you're looking at starter packs, I'm just checking. Splash Store. And I think currently, is it still up? It's still up.
Are you talking about the 100i thing?
And the 100i is still $40
so
American.
So pick up that 100i pack and then pay $5 extra and upgrade it into Avenger, and it'll be heaps cheaper. So if you're going to do it right today, that's what I would recommend. 100i, upgrade it straight into an Avenger. Yep.
So currently the 100i starter pack. In American dollars is $45.50. It's usually $65. That comes with the 100i, which has slightly less cargo than via the Mustang or the and I think as much cargo as an Aurora. It comes with 1,000 UEC credits. It has the squadrons. The Star Citizen download doesn't have Squadron 42 and 6 months insurance, but that is a good buy. If you're starting off, that is all you need. The 100i is a lovely ship. So that's and about price. It is worth getting.
I was going to say, even though I said upgrade to an Avenger, at least go fly the 100i for a bit before you apply the upgrade too, because then you can have a look at it and etc. etc.
And that is a lovely ship. And the main, in the past, people have heard us say this is a sucky ship, and it's because usually it's $65 for that starter pack.
Not when you can pay $5 and get a 300i or Titan. It's not. Sorry, I can't. I cannot recommend that ship at all.
But you get that starter pack, and you get the $5 upgrade to a Titan, or even a 300i, and that is an absolutely awesome starter pack. So for $50, you can get a $60 ship plus the game.
Yeah, it's very good value at the moment. I will give you
absolute good bonus for that pack at the moment.
It's been there for a while too, hasn't it?
It has been there for a while. Yeah. And when you consider that,
they mustn't have been selling.
Yeah, well, the Mustang. You look at the Mustang starter pack and the Aurora starter pack. They are $45 normally, or currently. So, and that's just the Avenger or the Aurora. With basically the same setup, although those two ships only have 3 months hull insurance. So at the moment, of those 3 starter packs, but I think the 100i is by far the best one. If you've got anyone who's out there saying, "Hey, I want to get into the game," but like as you said, just get in. Heaps of people will help you out. I know there are people who are utter bastards, and they will take advantage and just. Be scum.
But there's enough people out there with big fleets like myself and Algared that will more than you ask anyone to show you their ship, they'll show you because they like doing that. And it's
and as Execute said, there are lots of people who will take you out. John Citizen, if you want to do mining, John Citizen will take you out.
Yeah, 100%. And if you go into our Discord, or actually any Discord for that matter that's Star Citizen based, I'm pretty sure you could say, "Hey, I want to look at ship X," or "I would like to. Can someone help me?" And there is a whole guide thing as well where you can go sign up on the thing on the website. I do know a few people that
Spectrum has the guide, and you players can sign up to that, and then a new player can type in and say, "Hi, I'm interested," and you'll get the contact, and they might say, "Hey, come and join me in game." They'll answer questions for you.
But yeah, if you can wait to the weekend though. Contact Space Banu. He'll go through it with you. He's got a whole segment he does on that. So that's his thing. So if you want to be, and he'll get you on the show and he'll talk to you and what do you want to see? Like he'll customize it all to you really well. So, and then and afterwards, if you want to join his org or whatever, you can do that too because they're always bringing new people into that as well. And their org is really nice. That's where I met John, and then Space didn't even know about John and. Yeah, and John's gone several places now. He's a character if you ever meet John. That's why I bring him up because don't put him and Algared together though it ends badly. Usually for me.
Only for you. Only ends badly for you. We have a great time.
Yeah, at my expense, you bastards.
Absolutely, and you deserve it.
Yeah, all right. So Shadow Nova asks, if a reclaimer is a capital, do you think it is likely it will get a med bed in the future? No, not all capitals are going to get med beds. Kind of like we said. Like if you have every ship has everything, then there's no need to have other stuff, right?
Yeah, there's no need to have other ships.
You got to look at the ships that they're giving those meds to. They're both explorers. They're meant to be out on their own, or they are luxury ships that are meant to have everything, and that's why they're overpriced, right? But they don't actually do a lot, right? So 600 Eyes labels Explorer. Carrick is meant to be out miles away from everything. And obviously the 890 Jump, it's that luxury liner, and it is partially Explorer as well. So the ships that do have it have been chosen for that reason. Like the Idris is the same because it's a big military ship, and there's lots of people in there. That's why it's got it. I do believe they said something about the Kraken getting one as well. So, but that's why as well.
They did talk about the Kraken possibly getting one, and I think they were talking about it being a low tier one. So whether it was a one, or whether it was a like the red, or whether it was like the Carrick, I don't know.
I think they said a 2, but that puts on the par with everything else.
That would put it on par with the Carrick and 890.
And do you know why that is, Algared? Because if they made it a 3, there's no reason for the Apollo to exist. Oh, 1, sorry. There's no reason for the Apollo
There's no reason for the Apollo to exist or the Endeavour to exist.
Yep.
Or, and that's exactly what we were saying before. You know, you don't want everything to be able to do everything. Otherwise, there's no reason to have the other ships, and you want the variety in the game.
Yep.
So
the funny thing is, every time these questions come up, it's always the same thing: is people want the ship that does everything. And on paper, that's why the characters that people are like, oh, it does everything. But the thing is, though, it does everything, but not near anyone else. Like, if it's actually near other people, it's going to get absolutely slaughtered. You know, like, it doesn't have many, what is it, 5 to 8 crew? That's not a lot for a ship of its size. And then, you know, you've got 2 turrets, 1 top, 1 bottom. Like, it's not that armored for a ship of its size. Like, you know, like, it's just not. And it's designed to be out in the black away from everything else. That's why it's got what it's got, and that's why it can repair itself. And obviously its limitation is going to be food and quantum fuel. Yep.
And that goes into the, like, one thing that stuck out for me when I was reading going back to the Odyssey, you know, and looking at that, going back to the Odyssey and looking at the Odyssey, when you look at the jump point on the Odyssey, one of the things that came out in at least the briefing for that was that the Odyssey was a ship that goes in after the Carrack. So the Carrack's done all the initial search. The Odyssey would then go in.
Can I stop you for 1 second, because there's a question I missed and it relates to what you're about to talk about. So Soren Friston asks, how do you think land claims is going to work out in the future, and then they will needed to build an outpost? That relates heavily to the Odyssey, so I'll let you answer that one.
So you've got that, you know, the idea that the Carrack will go in first and do the searches. The Odyssey would then go in and do whatever it does. But that's why it doesn't need to have the same systems that the Carrack has in terms of being able to do all that nifty searching stuff. And then then the next stage would be, you know, hopefully the way we thought. Odyssey would do the surveying and stuff. Okay. And
I was just gonna,
that's what you were gonna say, weren't you?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were skipping it and going on to like the Prospector or whatever, to the Pioneer. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, continue.
Then I was going to go on to the Pioneer.
But that's what
searches.
Those land claims are almost directly linked to the Odyssey. Yeah. Like, they are so directly linked. So you find a really good land, like a land claim that's got heaps of shit on it. You basically save that and go, if you want to buy it, you can buy it off me at a premium. Yeah. I scanned the entire planet and I found these 5 that are bloody amazing. And that is what that ship, it is going in and picking up the prime cuts of land. That's what that ship is doing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what those land claims will be for. Right? Because you can buy it, I don't know, pick a number. Maybe you buy one for 4,000 and the 8 kilometer one is 8,000, but you turn around and you can just flip it because you went there and you took the time to find the prime cuts of beef, so to speak. Yeah. That's what land claims will be for.
Yep.
And yes, you'd obviously want to put one down to build an outpost, because it protects you. And what's the other thing about if it's you're inside UEE space, they will come to defend that. That's the thing that links it. Like, you own the property and you've paid for it.
And will back you up if you.
And you probably have to pay taxes on it too. I'm not, you know, like, it'll be all linked through that system. But they will turn up to help you because you pay them taxes, essentially.
Yep.
All right. Last question, I think. So it's the last one, and that's good because we're due to end in about 9 minutes anyway. So Ray Lauderback asks, question, have you ever considered doing a discussion on what CIG should do to improve existing or concept ships such as the Odyssey along the lines of Fix My Fleet? Yes, so we do a series called Ship Scrutiny. The Odyssey's not out though, right? So we tend to do it on ships that have been at least released in-game. We did talk about the Odyssey. We did talk about why the hell didn't they talk about it being a survey ship, because it is clearly a survey ship. Any like, once you've talked to the geologist people and you go through it, there's a giant fuck off mapping table at the back of the cockpit room. That is literally a mapping table. That's what it is. And if you think about it, it's got a scanner on the bottom, much like the Prospector. It scans, puts all the maps up. It's 100% what it is. But because exploring is so popular, they tried to sell it as an exploring ship. That was marketing that did that, and they told Paul Jones to say that, essentially.
But I still think that Paul Jones, like I've said it previously, and I stick by it. You know, he was one of the key designers on the ship.
Yep.
When you look at the discussion that Paul and the guys were having at ISC, the Interstellar Space Expo, and they were talking about the ships, and John Cruise said, and there's a possibly a ship coming to challenge the Carrack. Paul Jones was excited. He goes,
yeah.
So
I think it challenges it in size. What they do is very different. They're both explorers, but we've said this before. There are many different types of exploring. Exploring leads into data and data running. All things kind of intersect. But the thing is, they are very, very damn different.
For me, the big difference, and I've bagged the Odyssey up mercilessly because I really think the marketing sales was really bad in terms of what it can do. But the key thing for me from the Jump Point article was not all the things it could do, but was the comment where CIG was saying in the brief, which said the Odyssey comes in after the Carrack.
I don't quite.
That for me was the big thing. So the Carrack would go in and do the initial thing, and then it would come in and do the more extensive search of the area.
So
that changes the dynamic of that ship.
Yeah. So basically, you got the Endeavour that's playing the astrologist that's looking at the far off planets. You got the Carrack that is the astronaut. I don't quite know what to label the Odyssey there, but it's a part real estate agent and part property developer or something like that. I don't know what to call that, but you're obviously searching for prime. You maybe a little. I don't want to say archaeologist, but you're looking for, or maybe it is geologist, because you're looking for things that are value. So you're looking for mining nodes, liquid mining nodes, gas mining nodes. There's lots of other mining that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I thought one of the best ways we described it early on before the Odyssey came out was we were saying what we saw it as, and we said that basically the Carrack was your astrological explorer. It was doing the broad sweep, whereas the Odyssey and doing exploration for science sake. Yep. Whereas the Odyssey was doing it for economic,
industrial,
economic ability to exploit the resources there.
Yeah.
So different approaches to the same thing.
Yeah, kind of like Carrack's kind of like Star Trek, like the glory of exploration and going where no man's gone before, and the kind of the fun of it. And the Odyssey's more like the workhorse industrial. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, then. Okay. Hey, everyone. Random question for the next episode. Will the mole be able to fit inside the Polaris? No, it can't. There you go. We can confirm that. It won't even fit in the Odyssey. So, yeah. They're the same size, so no, yeah. All right, with that, we'll love you and leave you. There will be another episode this week, but as usual, we don't know what it is until we do it. So, yeah, but we'll go through and look at episode suggestions and stuff like that. Is there anything you want to add, Algared, other than the usual like, subscribe?
Yep, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I was looking at our analytics. Only 25% of our people who watch our show regularly actually click that bell. They click that bell, get those notifications. It does feed the analytics and all the other stuff.
We have
like what we do.
I was going to say we have been kicked around a little bit by the algorithm of late, so we're noticing it. There are actually views are down across the board. I don't know if that's just because of people a bit burned on Star Citizen, but I've had multiple reports from people that they're not getting notifications from us anymore and stuff like that. And this is over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, if you like our content, please give us a little bit of a kick in the butt, get us back up in there.
And we've also got we've recently made it so you can do the subscriber for YouTube type thing for our channel, and there's also Patreon. So if you like what we do, do one of those, because that actually really helps us hopefully improve our content. And
I think just about every one of us, maybe except Space. No, I've given stuff to Space. Paul. I think the only person that hasn't got some form of gear at the moment would probably be Paul. So I might reach out and see if you want something. But yeah, everyone else has at least got something up until this point now. So yeah. All right then. Yeah. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Little lackluster ISC this week, but we're rounding that corner into Invictus real soon, and so we're getting those. It'll all track up again. And obviously we've got 3.17, so you'll probably see a kick next week where every content creator, all the content will go up, and this slum that we've been in will probably roll over for at least a week or two.
It's the standard for this time of year. You know, you go through that slow period after Christmas, and they're gearing up, and then it boom, and it slows down again, and boom. You know, so.
All right, then. He's been Algared. I've been Execute. We'll catch you next time.
We're out of here. Take care.
That didn't play. Why aren't you playing? Hey, no. Hey, play the animation. Play the animation. Why not? Hey, there we go. Professional, not.